That would be a Norm Macdonald bit. It's
That would,
definitely
yeah.
true. It would.
Yeah.
It's funny that comes out of like such a left wing academic professional, but then it's just like if you were to change the delivery for 5 seconds, and it's the perfect Norm Macdonald live bit. It's just like, hey,
Yeah.
I don't have anything over there. You can't help
They
these people.
they got bed frames on the side of the road. I'm not gonna complete that
Did you
joke.
just say that? Oh my! Can you believe that he just said that? Maybe it's for the best that he never commented on like international affairs or anything
He
like
kind of
that.
did though. He kind of did.
No,
Norm
I mean he
Macdonald.
did. I mean, but never
Yeah.
to the degree of like aid to,
Oh, to Africa?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, he didn't. He didn't.
No.
So, I think maybe he might have. I feel like
Maybe.
because do you remember the Islam tweet? That was like the
Oh
infamous.
yeah, well,
Yeah.
it is weird to know that he died in like the Trump era.
Yeah.
Like it's a strange thing to think about. Like it feels like he's been dead for so much longer.
Yeah.
And then it's like, no, like he was doing stand-up sets in like 2017 before his health got really bad. And you can find some of them. And it's just like, had he lived longer, I could have imagined that Norm probably would have been at like the 2024 RNC and they would have promptly gotten in trouble because then he would have been like, well, what the fuck is that? After Harmeet Dillon does her prayer thing for it would have happened. I just know
he
it.
would have. Can you imagine him in the era of? Well, he lived in New York, right? Or no?
New York, LA area, I guess, yeah.
Oh yeah, he was. Yeah,
I mean, he was
like,
Canadian. I mean, he's done a little bit of he's lived a little bit of everywhere as a Hollywood type.
Can you imagine him in the era of Zora Madani? That would have been funny. Do you know what Zoran would have? You know how he proposes to get rid of homelessness, and then like his co-hosts are like begging for him not to say anything.
He would eat them.
He would eat them with his fingers, like. And then you got that Asian guy or whoever, you're like just staring off into the abyss. Like, please, not another Norm episode where he's racist.
Not another Norm episode where he's honest.
Oh my god. No, Norm, what was I gonna say? It's the Randy Shugart stream. Yeah, that was like my favorite scene in well, no, okay, I'll tell you my favorite scene in Black Hawk Down when we get into it, but that was one of them. But it's funny because that scene with Shugart and Gordon, they don't I think because they have time considerations, in the real mission, they actually had to fight their way through the crowd to get to the Black Hawk helicopter and Mike Durant. And so I guess for time constraints, they like see them running up really quickly. No, it took 2 hours of fighting just to get to the helicopter. Then they depleted their ammo fighting and defending Mike Durant.
Yeah.
And so it's like the reality of the mission was actually 10 times more brutal than what you see in cinema. And so
and keep in mind, like the film itself too it's 2.5 hours long, and I think that there's like an additional 40 minutes that's not usually shown in theaters or wasn't shown in theaters. It's like a director's cut. I did not watch the director's cut.
Yeah.
I watched this on my TV. I didn't like look for or pirate any like special editions or anything like that. I just went for what I could easily stream and went from there. Speaking of which, I have Tubi installed on my my little, I guess you could say, smart television or whatever. It's not my television. It's my fiance's because I don't have a TV in my apartment. But I have Tubi installed over there because it is the one place that a friend of mine recommended a movie for me, and he made it clear to me that like, oh, the only place you can watch it's on Tubi right now for free. And I was like, wow, Gio will be so proud to know that I am watching a film on Tubi. So there you go. I hope you're happy.
Yeah, I saw it on Tubi. Yeah. The director's cut's a bit longer. I think I've seen the director's cut.
I think it's like 3 hours, 20 minutes.
Yeah. A lot of it was filler though, but the Tubi version does like cut to the chase. So
Well, the theatrical release is 2 hours 32 minutes, everything included.
yeah.
Which is still an insane film length.
Oh yeah, especially for mostly a combat film.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, and it's also a star-studded cast. Like, this is really an ensemble crew.
Which makes you really question it, in my opinion. But,
Well, okay.
know,
I mean, have you seen, speaking of ensemble cast, have you seen the A Bridge Too Far?
I think many
It's the
years
World War
ago
II film. It's got everyone from Anthony Hopkins to Robert Redford to, I mean, this was an all-star cast for its time.
Yeah.
And it's just little cutaways of various like parts of of the failures of Operation Market Garden and trying to take the bridge and how this all inevitably comes to fail. And everyone's got their their 8 to 12 minute like little scene. Like Robert Redford has his own when he's like the American officer leading the charge and he's doing the Hail Mary the whole time. And then in this film, you don't really get that as much. I mean, you do actually, but it is a pretty star-studded cast, because this is also with Josh Hartnett, and this is coming off of Pearl Harbor and the financial success of that film. And
I hated that film though.
I have not seen Pearl Harbor in a long time, so I don't know if I have
I remember we watched it in history class.
I have a positive or negative feeling of it. I should probably rewatch it.
I remember the one anime kid I was kind of friends with, he stood up in class. He's like, because they asked us in class, like, what did you think about it? He's like, that was just a Michael Bay piece of shit. I'll never forget that. I'll never forget that. Shout out to Ethan if you're watching this.
Did he Naruto run in the halls?
No, he wasn't that bad.
Okay,
but
everyone had that kid in high school who did the Naruto run. And I'm always curious if you knew him, or like as soon as you said you were friends with him, I was like, is he friends with him? Did he do the Naruto run in class?
There was an anime club in my school. I told this story about how I was horrified one time doing a computer class project. But no, I think there was other kids that did. But I remember he said that. And I also remember this was like before this is like well before the 2010s. I'm an old T-Slayer. The girls
You're 33. Calm down.
I know. But like the girls in class, I think I was in grade 10. I know in America they have that's what's sophomore year, right? Is that in America?
Sophomore year. Yeah.
And I remember the girls were like horrified at the one line where the chick was like, I can't wait to get married when I turn 17. And they're like, what? Oh my God. And I remember even back then it was still like, it was, but I'm assuming the guy was 18 though. And not to get into age of consent thing, but like, I think his character was 18. Of course, they're all Hollywood actors. So it's sort of like Stranger Things.
Trying to play young people. Yeah.
Yeah. Like a 30-year-old trying to play like a teenager. It's ridiculous.
The more things change, the more they stay the same. And the older I get, the more they stay the same age. It never really changes in that regard. It's always some Hollywood 30-something who's I'm 17. And it's like, okay, I didn't know 17-year-olds had already gotten like all the bad. Anyways, like that's
like Sydney Sweeney in Euphoria, where she's like 17.
How old is she? She's like what, early 30s?
I think so.
Chat confirm. Horny people confirm.
But before we get to, I was actually going to compare, because there was some, of course, like it was some kind of like left-leaning video essayist or academic that compared Black Hawk Down to Zulus. And Zulus was a star-studded cast, if I recall, for its time.
Yeah, but Zulu came out in like 1964.
Right. But in terms of like the
oh no, the obvious
war films in Africa and the racial connotations.
Yeah. No, I get that.
Who is this mad fella? That's Prude's name.
Yeah, it's me.
Yeah. So, she's 28.
Oh, good for her.
There
Younger than me. I have no right to bitch.
You know what's funny? They have this new actress that, like,
boy, if I were to say, if I were to go say, "Hey, honey, you're the same age as Sydney Sweeney," I'd probably get in trouble.
Oh my god. So no, but there's this new actress that like they just invent celebrities now.
Oh
Like
yeah.
like that Family Guy bit. Like it's like just you have to care about these people. There, there's this celebrity. Her name is Odessa A. Zion, and I had this joke. I'm like,
There's no way. Where's she from? Ukraine?
no, I said, well, no, I think she's like Levantine or something. But like, uh, I had this bit where I said, I think I deleted that tweet where it's like she's basically someone said, "What kind of name is that?" One of my mutuals, and I said it's basically the two wars that the two wars that Hollywood supports currently.
So true.
So, but Chad Chatterson, yeah, that was the Family Guy bit. But anyways,
welcome everybody. There we go.
Oh!
Hope you're happy.
More
This is the
beer,
Digital
engineer!
Archipelago, episode 148. We've gotten to a point now where you almost have an episode for the last 3 years every week. I hope you're happy. It's been a long ride, and here we are. Things are going well. 2026 has been a wild ride of figuring out where things are going, who you really are. It's not that bad. We live in a day and age where Jim Medicare finally has a diagnosis. Things continue to get crazy on the home front. God only knows what's happening in Iran.
Yeah.
And turns out I'm getting ripped off by every country on God's green earth. I can't wait to do my taxes this year. I'm going to write off Minnesota for a deduction. I was thinking about like $5,000. That sounds fair to you, right?
Yeah.
I was going to write off a $15,000 one that just says Israel. That sounds about right?
There's probably a few more that say like China, India.
I was gonna write one to India for like being scammed. That sounds about right.
Yeah.
Just thinking about my taxes, guys. I'm just thinking about my taxes.
Oh, we'll
It
talk.
only sounds right. It only sounds right. What are you guys deducting on your taxes this year? Gio, what's tax? Do you have a tax season like for Canadians? Like, what is that like?
It's the same as America.
Oh, it's due the same time and everything?
Yeah.
Okay. That sucks.
I think it makes sense just logically in April.
Do you get a huge tax write-off if you like decide to off yourself with MAID? Do they say no taxes?
I don't quote me on this, but I think your family. No, actually, your family doesn't get anything, but your family, I think there is some kind of like tax thing, deductible thing if you choose MAID for your family. I'm not even joking. I think this is real. There's something there. Like the government's not gonna, they're not gonna screw your family over, but
no way.
Yeah.
That's really funny. Actually, that's really tragic, but I'm not really surprised in the slightest.
There is this one Canadian comedian that said, he's like, my grandmother's choosing MAID, and like, my grandmother's friend is choosing MAID, and she has this like, garden party to send her off with all my grandma's friends, and my grandmother brought like watercress sandwiches.
I remember Dimes talking about this story too, and it's just like,
prisoners in death row get a better last meal.
Yeah, I was like, you usually get a pretty better meal than just some watercress sandwiches. Like that just sounds like the worst, actually.
Some of the last meals are actually pretty keno, I gotta admit.
Texas does a good job, for better or for worse, telling the public what the last meal was, and also like what the last words were of a particular inmate.
There are food YouTubers on YouTube Shorts that do like the last meal thing.
Oh, do they?
Yeah, like the one guy, he like rates all of them. And like I think the more elaborate ones that have a variety are pretty good. But then you have like stupid ones, like you have I think McVeigh, his last meal was just 2 pints of what is it? Mint chocolate chip ice cream. That was his last meal.
I like mint chocolate chip ice cream.
That's good. I like it too.
I don't know if I would want that to be my last meal.
Yeah. And then there's other ones that's just like one nut, a pound of frosting, like really crazy stuff like that. Gacy ate a pile of KFC. Of course he did. Famous
That-
MK Ultra victim John Wayne Gacy. Can we say that on YouTube?
Yeah, why not?
Why not? Why not? I had a tweet
We're
recently.
148 episodes into this. We've not been having a monetization problem
Yeah,
in several years. I think we can get away with saying famous MK Ultra victim John Wayne Gacy.
I think the algorithm on Twitter kind of likes me again because maybe because Elon, he saw that thing where the Canadian government doesn't want to ban X, unlike Keir Starmer.
And he was just like, oh, we can give the Canadians some slack.
Yeah, we'll give him some slack. But I had this tweet today that I said like the sort of like ridiculousness of the satanic panic was part of the op. Like to focus on like kids listening to heavy metal or wearing goth makeup.
Yeah, it's never about like the Finders cases or like the actual well-known ritual panic murders that took place throughout the 80s and 90s.
And
no, we don't want your kids listening to this. And it's just like, that is actually the least of my problems. Why are all these kids being abducted and then all talk about the same thing when they get rescued by some random cop or hobo?
That
like,
wasn't on it, yeah.
Yeah, like I got questions. I got questions.
And why is it that certain law enforcement officers are told to release people who are clearly
affiliated with said connections?
Yeah.
Or why are they told explicitly by the FBI?
Or why does the FBI have a lot of like Setian and satanic cult affiliated people in their ranks? Why did that make any sense?
Just asking questions.
Just asking questions, yeah.
Yeah. Although it's really funny that the just asking questions thing has been turned into like the worst kind of trope or canard that people throw at each other. It's like, oh, I'm just asking questions, and it's like, no, you're stating something that everyone has already taken for granted because you saw it on the internet 5 minutes ago.
But that's what I mean when people say like just asking questions, they'll say some like stupid debate bro thing, or they'll say like something ridiculous. But then when it comes to like, oh yeah, they actually found children's bones near governor mansions. Oh, well, I wonder how that happened. Like just unexplainable.
And it's like, it's that. I mean, again, what did he know? For detective season.
Don't go to Houston, Texas. Put it that way. Don't
ask questions in Houston.
Why are these politicians hanging around an arcade in Houston, Texas? I don't know.
Why is there a certain restaurant that if I were to even name, this stream would be taken down and I would be demonetized?
Exactly. So anyway,
I got questions.
You do get like stupid, incredulous responses when you do have a viral tweet, but then like you do have a lot of people that get it.
Oh yeah. For every instance of someone getting it though, there's like 25 more of just like, you're not in for a good time.
Then like someone posted a photo of like Pope John Paul JP II with Ghislaine and Jeffrey, and I'm like, okay, out of all the things that have ever gotten me heat on Twitter, having the Vatican flag in my profile has actually been the thing that gotten me the most heat, because like people will just assume that like you're the archetype of an online tradcath or whatever, and it's like, you know what I mean? So I think
it's like, have you met this man?
Yeah.
It's like, sir, please.
There's
but, that's the thing, though, is that whenever you put in your bio or whatever you put on a handle, it just becomes like your signifier just turns into a tool in which that people can deliberately choose to ignore you or write you off for XYZ reason, which is incredibly frustrating because like there are a lot of people that have like really cringe shit in their like handle and or bio, and it's just like, well, I should probably be nicer, but I want to write you off. But I probably shouldn't, because that wouldn't.
A lot of it's a list of mental illnesses.
Oh yeah, well, 90% of the time it's a list of mental illnesses. But I play games like I play for keeps on the exception to the rule. You just don't ever see that very often. It's like a Paul Scalise tweet. Like you just don't see that very often anymore.
Exactly. Another interesting facet that someone brought, like one of the more like conspiracy people that brought up in my comments, was there was the whole obsession with the false memory syndromes. That is a very fascinating rabbit hole, because a lot of them, like, I mean, you could say a lot of them were like charlatans and grifters, But then a lot of them actually were just basically glow-in-the-dark, bad faith actors that were designing a narrative to obscure what was happening.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
initially in the 1980s, I remember like my mother and my father, my old man remembers these documentaries back in the 80s. There was a time in the early 80s where they were kind of like the media was obsessed with the recovered memory through hypnosis thing.
Yeah, because it was well, I don't want to say a
Yeah.
brand new tool, but it was certainly a popular one.
Well, it was trailing off the New Age movement, and of course, hypnosis had been used in psychoanalytic techniques even before Sigmund Freud. In fact, Sigmund Freud, he didn't talk about this because this whole thing was about science and fedora tipping, but he actually was tutored by a well-reputable hypnotist. And so the whole hypnosis uncovered memory thing was very popular. But then you had this immediate like media and pop culture pivot to covering it up with the quote unquote false memory syndrome, where children who experienced real CSAM, things I can't say on YouTube without acronyms, they were like, oh, it's just false memory.
Yeah.
And actually you're being gaslit by psychologists and academia and teachers to say this stuff and like, so there was like a clear psychological operation to twist people into thinking that anytime a child had an uncovered memory of their parents or people that were, and especially people connected to places of power, that it was a false memory syndrome and they were making it up. And in fact, Sigmund Freud's, as we said one time on DA a few weeks ago, Sigmund Freud had to pivot his research away from things that children or adults that were children who experienced this were telling him, and he had to invent the whole like child actuality thing.
Yeah.
To say that, so like there's a long history of the side, and you don't necessarily. And here's the thing, like, okay, me and Prude, because of our religious faiths, we believe that there's something deeper going on spiritually, but you don't have to believe that these people were genuine Satanists or that they were doing it for occultic. I wouldn't say occult because like that word is abused by, unfortunately, by a lot of like Christian types. But let's say like nefarious left-hand path, satanic purposes, for lack of a better term. You don't necessarily have to believe that they were doing it for those purposes to actually look at the evidence and look at the documentation and look at what they were doing and look at the intelligence agency connections to it. There could be totally materialistic explanations into why these groups were doing what they were doing. You don't really have to go into like they're doing it because they were Satanists or Setians or they were doing a left-hand path ritual or like the New World Order worships demons. Like you don't have to go into that to necessarily have a coherent political analysis of what was going on with all of these groups. And like, yeah, and someone in the chat mentioned Jimmy Savile. Like that was a huge,
Oh yeah.
So Australia, there was a big one. In France, there was a big one. And of course, the Dutrell one in was it Denmark or was it?
I think it was Denmark. I could be wrong.
Belgium, or was it Belgium? Yeah. Of course, the 20 years later thing plays up the Jimmy Savile thing, but
yeah, and like that too. It's because I mean, obviously, it's a world where our timeline never happens.
Yeah, Tony Blairism never happened.
Like Tony Blair's never elected, and the end of the world functionally happens, right before all of the changes to Britain take place. And I mean, there's more Goth's analysis of it. There's countless others, but I mean, like it kind of it raises an interesting question of like, okay, this is where things are, and so like none of this ever gets uncovered, and so and I mean, it's also had a weird post-apocalyptic feel in the same way that like you have like the Kings from like Fallout New Vegas, where like, well, in a different world, it is par for the course that like there would be people that consider him something interesting or magical or just cult-like, which I don't know how true that would be, but then again, I don't ever want to live in a world where I get to find out whether that's true or not. Like, would there be like a Donald Trump cult in the post-apocalypse?
The man with the man with the green gloves. Yeah.
Like I have questions, and I don't want I don't want to find them out either.
But it's funny because it's a categorical error, because a lot of the Seville British elite being cheese pizzaists, a lot of that happened or was enabled during the Tony Blair era. And people have speculated that a lot of top officials in the Blair government, or people that are still being controlled by him, is essentially in tandem with the British power structure. But because Danny Boyle and Alex Garland, they're both libtards. Like they have
They'll never interrogate that question.
Exactly. They have this fantastic picture of it.
I think in a lot of ways, because the left has a terrible ability to be reflexive.
Yeah.
Like when the left is reflexive, it's always like, well, we didn't know, and it was because like we were still blinded by like all these systemic institutions of power, and we just didn't know, and we were just part of it. We were victims, man.
Yeah.
And it's just like, no, you weren't.
But crazy people like David Icke, and Johnny Rotten, they knew about it. But they were like totally cast aside as nut bars for saying
they're just insane. They're nothing. They're nothing special. What do you mean? It's just like, and it's like, well, if, that raises an interesting question. And but I mean, that's a whole other can of worms for a later date,
right.
to dig into. But I mean, it is something well worth interrogating, where it's just like, well, it would be fun, I think, one of these days that we should do like the whole 28 days. Like, I guess you can call it a trilogy.
Oh, I'm going to go see the Bone Temple this week. It's coming out.
Oh, yeah. They did another film.
Me and my mother, I think I said that me and my mother actually went to see 28 Years Later.
What'd your mother think?
She liked it, actually. She's like, I don't like the violence and the gore, but like, well, I shouldn't say that, because like she's a big fan of The Walking Dead, so like it wasn't alien to her. But she quite enjoyed the story with Spike's mother. What's her name? Jodie Corner.
Yeah, the one who's dying of cancer.
Yeah. And so she quite enjoyed 28 Years Later. But the Bone Temple one's going to be even more crazy and out there. But you know what you'd really like, Prude? There's this YouTuber that does these timelines of fiction. Like he did one in 1984. He did one of the wildfire virus and Walking Dead. He has these whole series of videos on the timelines or theoretical timelines of The Walking Dead. Not The Walking Dead, but like on 28 Years Later. And he talks about like how in between 28 months, like 28 weeks later and then 20 years later, there was like an incident in France. Then there was an incident in Japan because of Chinese spies leaking the virus. And then there's like a black market of getting things out of Britain from the mafia in France and Italy. And he has this one of like what would happen in the 2030s and 40s if there was a war between Russia and Finland while there is an outbreak of the rage virus happening in continental Europe. It's a great video. You'd like it. It's got a lot of geopolitical things, how people would like various world powers would use the virus to their advantage and so on and so forth. But anyways, should we mention Scott Adams?
Yes. Dilbert creator, pundit, and commentator Scott Adams had reposed from cancer today.
Yeah.
He was 68.
So rest in peace, Scott Adams. I was never a big Scott Adams fan in terms of his I
loved Dilbert. I love Dilbert. Yeah, I have not.
Yeah.
I'll be perfectly honest. I have not read his books. I don't have an opinion on the show. I think in a lot of ways he was known for having some virality. Obviously, I mean, whether it was the "stay the fuck away from them" comment, which rightfully so. I don't care what other people say. He was correct. I don't care what others say. He was right.
Just stay the fuck away.
Just stay the fuck away.
No, the channel is called 1045 Hour Vitality. That does all the maps of these different.
Okay,
they have a 1984 map too.
I'll have to go give it a.
Yeah, which I didn't know that in the book, Ingsoc was a revolutionary group that then slowly took over Britain through staging various protests, which I believe Eric Blair, George Orwell meant it to be an analogy to what was Oswald Mosley's group?
The British Union of Fascists.
The British Union of Fascists. Like that was basically like they were like a revolutionary anti-capitalist but also fascistic group. Like Ingsoc was essentially like third positionist, and they slowly took over Britain through staging these different revolutions in these towns and these different riots and protests. But no, but yeah, Scott Adams, I'm a huge fan of Dilbert the animated series. Like me and my old man watched it when I was younger, and I remember like it would come on before Leafs games. I remember that's how I remember it. But no, like the animated series was absolutely perfect. Kino. It was only unfortunately two seasons because UPS went belly up.
UPN went belly up.
Yeah,
around the same time that you had all like the sci-fi channel trying to vie for control of UPN, and I mean the Scott Adams, the Dilbert animated series dies in the same way that like Star Trek Enterprise dies at the same time. That era of That's that era of television.
SmackDown was the best when it was on UPN, in my opinion. I shouldn't say that because after UPN they had like the Paul Heyman era. They had the SmackDown 6, where it was like the 6 superstars like Edge, Eddie Guerrero, Rey Mysterio. I forget the other ones. Was I think Benoit, like all the vanilla midgets. You know, they were on they called the SmackDown 6. But no, UPN was great. I remember UPN.
The vanilla midgets.
That's what they called. Okay, so it comes from when Eddie
I'm not
Guerrero,
complaining. I just think that it goes hard.
This is what Kevin Nash called Eddie Guerrero, Perry Saturn, and Chris Jericho and Chris Benoit when they left WCW. They left the undercard of WCW to go to WWE, and they had huge careers. He called them the vanilla midgets because they were very talented, but they were smaller and like they weren't like the archetype of like Vince McMahon type of wrestling where it's like big, beefy, muscular guys, you know, so you call them vanilla midgets. Like, you know, oh, they're boring. They can do a bunch of flips, but who cares? You know, whereas like Kevin Nash cannot do any, you know, I think one of the greatest burns I ever heard was from Jim Cornette, who said that Kevin Nash could do 4 moves, including flipping his hair when he enters the ring. So, you know.
That's pretty good. That's a great insult.
Good, yeah.
I didn't grow up with any of that stuff because like I had AFN as a kid, so AFN was just like whatever was popular on TV, and it happened to be, you know, the reruns of a particular show or things that were already on the air that they could get that was in syndication, and that was it. And it was never anything about wrestling or anything like that. So I mean, a lot of PBS television I saw as a kid. Sports was just never something I got to pay attention to live, unless it was the Super Bowl, or you had someone like tape something for you, and that was about it. And that was really as far as it came for until we got later when I was a teenager, we got Sky Television. And then we had British cable, and that was, I don't even know if that was piracy or not. I'm sure that it probably was to some extent. I don't know. But like we had access to virtually everything. And my favorite thing, speaking of like zombie media, my favorite piece of zombie media to this day is Channel 4's Dead Set.
Yeah, Dead Set.
Where it's the Big Brother TV show. That one I'm a big fan of. I think that one's a really good one because it's just like the zombie apocalypse breaks out while all these people have no idea what the hell's going on in the outside world. And I think that's just, it's really well done. And I'm like, I never watched Big Brother either. So I don't have an opinion of it either. It's just, I thought it was a really well done piece of zombie media, which you don't really get to see a lot of these days. There's not good. It's a genre that has, is The Walking Dead killed.
Yeah, pretty much.
Although it is interesting because like there's going to be oh god, did Ennis do the Crossed comics? Chat, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure he did. So apparently like Crossed is the comic series is getting a film adaptation. Which kills me because it's just we have the rage virus already, you know, like we already have like fast, aggressive, not zombies, but basically zombie
infected
kind of media,
people.
Infected people. I mean, like, yeah, it's not it doesn't have the same connotation to it. Also, I'm kind of curious to see how, I mean, it'll probably do just fine because like you can probably depict a cross in other places, or if it's always done that's evil. that's interesting. Just asking questions. But it's just like, okay, I guess we're doing this again, you know. But yeah, I know that that's happening, which is interesting because I don't know if it was Ennis who worked on it. I did like the 1968 comics, the ones about like the zombie apocalypse during the Vietnam War. Those are really fucking
They
good.
have those?
Yeah. It's I think
Whoa.
it's just called like 68, and it has a whole bunch of other, you know, continuations of how it came to be. I don't like the explanation for the zombie outbreak in that world, because it's just like, oh, a meteor came by, and then like this like preservative we all use, and all of our like chemicals have changed, and so you know, now that's the very thing that's caused the dead to rise, and they want to eat more of that preservative that's basically in every human being. And it's just like, like
That's kind of a stretch.
It didn't sell well for me. Like, there's some obviously like throwaway references. Like, I thought that the whole like, you know, Evil Knievel is like killing zombies. Richard Nixon basically gets killed by the guys who were with Charles Manson at the time. Like, it just goes all over the fucking place.
Oh, the
But,
Manson
like,
family kills Richard Nixon?
yeah, it's
Whoa.
a wild, weird set of comics. But it's interesting. I can give you that much. It is an interesting it's an interesting world.
I think they got they got that idea from Richard Matheson's I Am Legend, because I Am Legend is sort of like a Cold War book, because it posits the vampire virus as coming from a meteoric event, or potentially coming from a war in the quote unquote East. So like America finally goes to war with China and or Russia. So it's like the war breaks out, and then this mysterious virus either came from an asteroid, or it may have come from something to do with like the war. And so that probably is, yeah, like the only faithful adaptation is really the Vincent Price.
It's the 50s one, isn't it? Or
the Vincent Price 50s one, yeah. Last
it's
Man
the
on
only
Earth.
like near book accurate telling of that of the story.
Yeah, the Will Smith one was a total piece of shit.
Although I do like the concept that like genetically modified disease to like cure cancer inevitably causes a problem. Like there's a very accelerationist commentary to that I think is interesting, but it's just meant to be a zombie film. Although I remember like when that movie came out, my dad and I watched it on Halloween late at night. I think it was like 9 or 10. I don't remember. When did that movie come out? I don't remember.
2007.
2007. So okay, I was like 12 or 11 or 12. And I was like, I think it was like the first time I watched the movie, I was like, oh wow, that actually scared the shit out of me.
Yeah.
But I was like, I was like 12 or 11, so I'm like, it's probably
it combines,
there's probably scarier films I've watched.
Which
is funny because like I've seen Saw, and I don't have an opinion about that being like, ooh, gore, that's a problem. I don't know.
I guess Saw and Hostel, they're like too fantastical in a lot of ways.
Yeah, most of the time they can't. The first one's really good. The first Saw is fine. I don't have a problem with the first Saw. I have it's the sequels that I guess kind of
by the third one it gets boring.
By the third one you've already told the story, because like the original Jigsaw is like dying of cancer. Like there's not more that you really need to do with this tale. Like it's finished. We're good.
He's Walter
There's
White,
a wrap up, but we have to keep giving commentary on it.
Yeah. No, it's funny because the Will Smith one, it combines both the elements of Last Man on Earth from the 50s and also the Omega Man with Charlton Heston, which is set in the 70s, even though it feels like a 50s movie, because it combines them by him being like a scientist, but also like militarily capable. Like he lives in a compound, he has a souped up combat rifle. So they're clearly taking from both sides of those two films. But
there's no And but it's also like Will Smith is a scientist, but he's also, I think he was like an officer in the military, or
he's a military scientist.
Yeah, he's a military scientist with like, it's like I'm sure he had like Fort Detrick access or something. Who knows?
Yeah, he's like Dustin Hoffman in Pandemic.
Yeah,
that film was called. Yeah.
No,
that
what
was
movie is that?
Shit film.
Although Pandemic is good.
It's a good film,
I'm trying to think, because there was a lot of movies like Pandemic in the early or the mid 90s that were kind of like B movies, because there was what is it, Pandemic, that ends up being like actually the Native American like tribesmen or whatever had the cure for forever. Okay.
And the hydrogen bombed them. Yeah.
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 And so we're white man's the problem yet again. Who would have guessed? Thanks, Mr.
Well,
Hoffman. Really cool.
Contagion. That was the film. Contagion.
Contagion was the one that came out in 2011 that basically was like, oh, this is COVID, except if it were actually deadly.
Yeah, like that was a good film too. Like they.
Oh no, it was great.
Tried to go to the sea. Yeah.
No, it was a really good film. I don't have any problems with
They found
Contagion.
the compound.
And they had the guy from Split, right? McAvoy do the like Alex Jones style Survivor. I'm immune. I'm going to take this thing and live stream it. Which, man, did they get that shit right too?
Oh man.
Not just. I mean, I'm a believer to some extent of predictive programming. I will admit that openly, but I don't know how much that was.
I wonder if people still watch those COVID streams, or people like going in public and there was like totally empty. It was like liminal space.
Well, I think the whole trend of liminal spaces really did take advantage, or really blew up during the COVID era. Because like, what else are you going to do at this time? Where are you going to go?
Exactly.
You're going to film the empty world and emptiness, and people are like, "Oh, Zoomers are scared of an empty room." I'm like, I really don't think that that's what it is.
No, it's something very deep in the unconscious.
Yeah, no, there's an unconscious unease whenever you are alone in a large empty area. And like, yeah, you can have a gun, or yeah, you can be prepared and trained, but like, there is, I think, a general sense of unease when people don't know what to expect or what's around the corner.
Yeah, no, but also like it's something that we're most familiar with, where we rather should be familiar with, but then it becomes very strange and alien instead of comforting. And so I think there is like something there where we are so used to these spaces, but they're given back to us in a very uncanny way. And that's like really what is the terrifying element of it.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah. So
I don't think you get a lot of that though these days. I mean, it's a genre that has effectively died, and I don't want to say that it's dead, but I mean, it's something that doesn't get the same kind of attention or the views that it may have once had
in the early 2020s.
Yeah, because again, like COVID has come to a close, and you don't really have. I mean, people are still terminally online and things like that, obviously, but like it's not to the degree in which I have to worry about, lockdown or anything like that. There's no moral precipice or moral concern that like, oh, I shouldn't go out and do anything, so I'll stay inside, or it's the empty room I'm concerned about. Like, that's all gone.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, well, what are we talking about now? That's why I said like analog horror as a genre has evolved, or it is evolving, because now people use it to mainly talk about like religious themes, or the like crib from Evangelion, or they'll take it to like an IP that's well established. Like I know that there's a lot of Jurassic Park. That's what I'm looking for. There's a lot of Jurassic Park themed analog horror, which I find to be really interesting. It's just like, oh, okay, I don't know who this is for, but it's pretty good. I'm not going to complain.
But what are we're entering the mid 2020s. I wonder what the big fear is. It feels like
I don't think we've discovered it yet.
Maybe like slipping up in public, that there is that like the SSPX subreddit where the guy's like confessing to like being attracted to that one chick in his church, and then she's with another guy. He's trying to get over it, and the people are dogpiling him. Some anon. I wonder if like being overtly self-confessional and sort of like stumbling into the trap of like, internet dynamics of total ironic detachment and critique is like, that's,
I think that there's something to that, because, I think that a lot of millennial culture online was so predicated on the open confessional.
Right.
Like, because you had things like Yik Yak or other social media platforms that were very explicit in the fact that you could effectively get away with confessing like deep, dark secrets, or like things that you were into, without any consequence to what you were saying. Of course, that was killed in the woke era, because like I remember there was a big case about like Yik Yak trying to like, I guess like a university wanted to disclose. I think it was like Colorado College in Colorado City, Colorado. Someone had posted that they didn't find black women attractive, or a specific black woman attractive on campus. They said that she was ugly. And the student saw it, or someone saw it, and raised concerns about racism. And they were trying to like, find whoever posted that thing. And it was like, okay, that's functionally the end of the application, because, if I can't even say something that I don't think is people have their preferences. It's just like, okay, well then why am I here? Like, why am I on this application if I know that I could potentially be doxxed for simply whatever reason? So I think that in a lot of ways, yeah, like I think that everyone, or certain generations, go to the internet first. And I think that it's really, really tragic. Like there's, I won't say who, because I respect the gentleman's privacy, but like, I will use a story of his as an example. This isn't doxing anybody, so we'll be fine. So like, he and his ex-girlfriend got into a fight, and words were said, things were hashed out, and he was ready to like talk to her like a normal human being. She was not. She consulted the internet first before going back to him. Like, she went to Reddit, and he only knew because like he knew her account. And it was just like, oh, well, that's actually like, that really does damage any potential, like, whatever you say can be leaked. And I think that also has a lot to do with just like the general issue that we all have now with being open or honest or talking to one another in a way that, like, you have to really trust whoever you're dating or you're with or married to for secrets, because like, you don't know what they're going to post or what they might find to be so innocuous that they're going to talk about it to like the entire fucking world. Like, right. I saw, like, I'm not on TikTok, for example. And so like, I'll see things that get posted on Twitter, or I'll see things that my fiance post. And like, there are some things out there that I'm like, well, this is just really fucking egregious. Like, there was one, I think that like Homath had put out like like a year or so ago. And it was like a guy having an emotional moment with his girlfriend, because I think like his dad died or something. And he's just like, and like the woman in question is like, he's like bawling his eyes out over the loss of a friend, but like I can see where he's balding. And it's just like, why the fuck would you post that to the internet?
I saw that. That was really like
nothing had turned me more into like a raging sexist than just like seeing that right there. And I was like,
an orbital,
oh my gosh,
nuclear cannon of like the psyche. Yeah, that was no, but it's almost like the confessional thing and being caught up by the internet. It's like, it's not as explicitly political as it was during the quote unquote woke era. I hate that term.
I hate it too, because like, we're still in the woke era. Like, what are you people talking about? Like,
but there's always the politics underneath.
Oh yeah.
Like true. I noticed like the rad femme thing is coming back. Like that, the guy that got dogpiled in the SSPX subreddit, like that's also has an underlying politics of male desire being, but I noticed like even in like,
it just goes back to the same thing that often so gets discussed, which is that male desire is criminalized. Or
there was this great book reviewer, like YouTuber, that she was talking about like book smut and how like it actually is just prawn, and it's not really useful. It's not real literature. It's not real women's lit. It's, you know what I mean? It's basically exploitation of desire.
It's literature, as the joke goes, or as the
and of course, like, she got dogpiled by a lot of these like Zoomer women by saying like, well, you want me to like be repressed or whatever, and she's like, that's not the point. That's like, so like it seems that
that's actually not what's being discussed here.
Yeah, so it seems that like ironic detachment is kind of coming back in a weird way. And I mean, I asked about like, what is the horror of the mid 2020s? I think obviously politics is still ever present. Like I know like the whole ICE thing and like, but those things have always been there. There's always been like whatever like looming totalitarian force is going to come down and oppress you. Like that's always been in the mainstream.
I feel like that's just an fear of all politics. Is
of course,
is just like basic totalitarianism.
Yeah, but I think like there's sort of like a newer feeling to it of and a lot of it is highly sexed in a way that it does deal with erotic desire usually.
Oh,
Because
it's explicitly
yeah,
sexual. Like there
yeah.
was the I think everyone again, we're on Twitter, so you don't have to be.
All
And
confessional is explicitly erotic in some weird way.
in a large part,
A
yes. I don't
large
know if
part,
it's
yeah.
I don't know if it's entirely, but I would agree
Not
in a
all, not
large
all,
part.
but like a large part, yeah.
Oh, well, on the internet, yes. Like in modern times, like yeah, it's almost explicitly just almost always sexually charged. And like for instance, again, we're on Twitter, so you don't have to be. I don't want you to look this up. I'm merely going to describe it. There was some Antifa adjacent or just some progressive woman on Twitter saying like, well, we need to talk about the women who are dating fascists. We
Oh, she
need to
does those
talk
silly little
about
comics. Yeah, I know that one. Yeah.
yeah. She was.
Yeah.
I mean, she was the main character for like 5 minutes. She's like, we need to talk about the women who are dating fascists, who are breeding with fascists, who are marrying fascists, and I'm like, this is just sexually charged language. There is nothing. There's nothing about this that just doesn't sound like you're a cat in heat. And she may not look at it that way, but it sure as fuck reads that way. And
Well, I think it's more of like a politicization of intimate spaces. Obviously, like you have a greater moral obligation, which in a weird way, it's funny how I know like pointing out hypocrisy is beyond the point, but it's funny how they do criticize what they perceive as like quote unquote trad societies for having a higher standard or having a communal morality that dictates who you end up with in your romantic life, i.e., who you're marrying in your own group, in your own religion, and so on and so forth. But now it's like they have a similar recapitulation of those values, but in a very inverted, hyper political way, where if a woman is like having kids with someone who's a quote unquote fascist, which means someone who's like, like a
normie
like
Republican,
normie
most
Republican,
likely.
yeah, or like I'm assuming some kind of like e-girl that writes for Elle magazine is dating like 1488
some guy
griper.
who went to Notre Dame,
Yeah, exactly, or like some griper. So like that becomes a weird way of re-entrenching the same thing, and in actuality the sort of neutral very like appetitive secular humanist based, like you marry for love and nothing else, nobody has a say in your romantic life, you're doing it as a pure
Nobody has a
individual.
say in your romantic life until it's the wrong person.
Right, and you're a pure like liberated individual that lives at the end of history, that you don't have any sort of communal tie, that you're just doing it out of self-interest as an individual.
Your family is chosen.
Exactly. Like all of those values are actually bullshit, and nobody actually, not even nobody on the left and certainly nobody on the right, actually believes in those things, because there's a different prescription set of values and hierarchies of morality and values that you must prescribe to even in the most intimate quatrains of your existence. And it goes back to, again, what Carl Jung said, that in the absence of actual proper religiosity, you're going to invent some kind of force of signification that goes beyond your mere individual existence, beyond you. And so in a weird way, that woman talking about how, women shouldn't marry fascists or reproduce fascists, blah, blah, blah. I mean, it's a very old hat thing. Like it goes back to Wilhelm Reich, right? It goes back to Adorno. But the way that she's stating it so bluntly is that it's not that you're opposed to having a greater moral or communal belief system or structure being imposed on the intimate quatrains of your life. It's that you just disagree with the older forms of those totalizing, hierarchical, overarching values being imposed on married life or who you choose to have sex with or intimacy. It's like everybody has that. So the only people that still believe in this illusion are very few and far between. And they're usually people that are like sort of in their own minds, they're wedded to some kind of like pure secular humanist libertarian individualist idea that just nobody believes in, because why would you? And if I'm making sense, if I'm actually making sense,
well, and it also just boils down to like there again, a lot of politics to some extent, rooted or otherwise, is fundamentally based in some kind of there is like obvious sexual dynamics to it. And
Yeah,
so
there's
it's like,
negotiation of subjectivity as well. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Like there is no, but there's also like nothing for you to like contextualize upon either. Like there,
Right.
it's the only few times where the left is explicitly black and white, and relativism plays no role whatsoever. And so in doing so, right, like this is when these discussions about power or discussions about well, do you actually get to belong in this like society, or this conversation really gets to come out of the woodwork and rear its ugly head? Because then all of a sudden, like, is this a question about like, like, are you upset that you're not the person having sex in this conversation? And the left will play into that far more. I think this is why incel gets used far more on the left than it does the right, because I think that most healthy right-leaning people have no problem, I think, either securing a mate or long-term things. That's been inverted now. I'm not saying that the issue of good women scarcity isn't a problem. God knows that it is. I'm not trying to belittle anyone else's thing. I'm trying not to come off like you and I have it made because we both have women in our lives. But because this has now been inverted, and they have now taken away the very healthy norms that you and I would have grown up with, or our parents would have grown up with. Now, all of a sudden, like, these are the very things that they get to throw back in your face, because it's like they know what has happened and they know what they are the champion and the cause of. So when you manage to succeed, or you manage to have something that they don't want you to have, then all of a sudden they're going to throw it right back at you. And then, of course, there's the whole other like third rail in all of this, which is that like, well, the blatant like anti-white factor into all this, which has been so front and center in our politics for the last several years, because we're openly discussing the issue of demographic change and replacement, the celebration parallax, as Michael Anton called it. Like it's not happening, and it's good that it is. And because that it is, like, you deserved it for some reason. There's no further interrogation other than like, you're just explicitly evil, and that's how things are going to be. And we don't have to talk about it because like, you're going to go away soon, and bye-bye.
It's like a bastardized and secularized version of like a form of animism, where you're like possessed by an evil spirit.
Yeah.
And so your totality of being becomes evil, and there's no accounting for it. Because what I was going to say is like, to interrogate that a little bit, not to say like I'm dumping, and so don't like say I'm dumping on people or whatever, but I think that in some ways certain leftist critiques of like why certain young men become right-wing are kind of accurate, in the sense that there is a society that's taken from them. There is a lack of romantic opportunities. There is like an incel problem.
And they're responsible for it.
Yeah, and so therefore like lack is a driving force of reactionary politics. That is true. But I think the difference is, when I say that, is that I do not posit that as, I mean, there are like a lot of psychos on the political right that are like bad people, and that, they're annoying or whatever. But I'm saying for the vast majority of young men in particular, and some young women that gravitate towards right-wing politics because they experience a fundamental sense of void within their lives, romantically or, communally. I think I do not want to posit that as a quote unquote moral failing.
No,
I think that's
I wouldn't either.
Yeah, the left has an accurate analysis of what can drive right-wing beliefs, but they do not have an accurate analysis of the creation of that lack to begin with, or that it's a moral failing. Like, again, like it's a secular animism where they're driven by an evil spirit and there's nothing you can do except like that deranged, what was that fucking guy's name? The Asian guy that was on The Price is Right, or not The Price is Right. He was on, what was that other show? The game show, the intellectual game show.
Jeopardy?
Jeopardy, yeah. The guy that was in Jeopardy. Arthur Chu. He had that like deranged
Oh, yeah, he had the deranged take where he was like, the last man will win.
Yeah, and also like that if you're a fascist, like there's nothing that can cure you. You're basically like a zombie, blah, blah, blah. So that's like, he's a great guy because he can articulate leftist thought without any pretension to any sort of like cushioning it or, beating around the bush. He's got some kind of like powerful tism that makes him just say the quiet part out loud, right? So the thing is, it's not that it's a moral failing to have a fundamental sense of lack in your life and to gravitate towards right-wing politics because of it. It's that it's like the leftist critique of the psychology of it is correct, but the right-wing critique of the greater society that has casted younger people into this, state of fallenness is also correct. But I think the problem is that the solutions that they offer, and some parapolitics people, to be fair, they have also said this, right? They're like, maybe you should moderate your message towards young men in particular, is that, the message that they give you is that you deserve it and you're wrong and you're evil, even though we've accurately described that conveyor belt of right-wing politics or reactionary sentiments. But you're not going to offer them anything besides destruction or don't believe in that anymore, and maybe you'll get pussy. It's like, that's not reality. That's like, there's so many issues as to why young men and women cannot find proper love and, affiliation within their communities and marriage and eventually reproduction and family life. Like, there's a whole variety of reasons. And I think that this sort of like knee-jerk, I was going to say the R word on Twitter, on YouTube, but like this whole like retarded attitude of sassiness and like, you shouldn't do this, blah, blah, blah. It's like, in a weird way, like I hate to say this. I really hate to say it because I think that people, it's a stupid cool meme to say that the moment that you achieve a relationship that your politics changes. But there is a truth in the sense that for a lot of people that aren't so invested ideologically in whatever politics they're in, that like radical politics, the blow of it does sort of like the degree of which the hesiety of it does lessen a bit. The differentiation, and you sort of like gravitate towards more of a normative position within that political spectrum when you do have like things that, not necessarily like getting pussy, but like, let's say you have things that you're responsible for, like a family.
Well,
like
yeah,
a partner.
I mean, that's true. The moment that people
Right.
become a dad, for example,
Right.
like there's a sudden realization where like, oh
Yeah.
shit, I don't know if you can't be an activist in a lot of ways anymore, because like now your responsibility isn't so much to like
Right.
the movement. It is now like, well, you have a family to take
Not in
care
all
of.
cases. Some people actually get more.
Well, you're right. Some
radicalized.
do,
Yeah.
some do. Or like you could be a leftist and you can just bring your baby to an ICE protest and
Yeah.
use it as a human shield. And then
Like women, they get more radicalized when they have a family and they become even more right.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah, but my point being is that I think the way that the like leftists often deploy it online, I think that's cool and it's a bad take and it's not true all the time. But there is a degree of truthfulness to the sense that when you do have more things you're responsible for in life, then like radical politics does take sort of a back seat, like and you're sort of like not all the time, but I'm saying that there is a sense of that. So by saying like, the biggest thing I think that would de-radicalize younger men in particular is if you were to give them a sense of purpose through having a relationship and through family life. That would be like essentially not 90%, but that would be pretty close to 50 to 60 to 70% of the problems of young men becoming like far right. Not all the time. Like, I think that, but the thing is like, that's a fantasy because within the contemporary leftist worldview, that's a bad thing. And so you don't want that. And
well, and the other thing too is like, I remember this was an early argument. I think,
it's like the video game thing. Last point I'll make. The video game.
Yeah. Go on.
If you were to just give them their big titty video games and the violence and the Call of Duty and the tits and the fucking bikini, volleyball game, like or the anime waifu video games, if you were to just like leave video games alone, I think like peak like Obama era wokeness would still be with us. Like if you were to give them a palliative, if you were to give them a soma that was like detached from other greater political concerns, a lot of like the chuds that would go into Gamergate and support Trump or whatever, or in other countries, a lot of that kind of like the blow of right-wing politics wouldn't have been the same. I truly think this. I truly believe.
No, I've had this conversation with people like Paul Fahrenheit and others years ago, where it's just like, really, if they kept the white people in the commercials, I don't know how many people would perhaps be as attentive. Which is a terrible thing to say, because like I feel like a lot of people, but I mean, it's the things that are so obvious that get people to notice in the first place. It's never
an indictment on humanity as a whole, but yeah, I know what you mean.
Well, yeah. But I mean, like it is like it's the stuff that like really sticks out to you that like all of a sudden you're forced to like address, and they're never comfortable questions because it's like, well, why is it always like this? Like, why is it an interracial couple and like every other fucking commercial? And like that seems like really dumb, or it can seem innocuous at first. And then you're like, well, why isn't there anything? And they're like, well, the left complains about representation, but why does that always have to come at the expense of me? And then you find yourself in a circa like 2015 era rabbit hole, and then like you're back to where we are. Like eventually the cycle restarts itself, and those things play a role here too. And it's really funny that you mentioned like the kids thing, because like this is the kind of argument I've witnessed a lot of people go on about with like the Renee Good lady, you know.
Yeah.
Like she was a mom, how dare you? And it's just like, well, but she didn't have custody of the kids. And they're like, well, she was so, you know, she was like taking her kids to school. And it's like, was she? Like that doesn't seem to be the case. Like now that we have more information out on the issue and on the case. And it's just like, so the more that we look into this, it's like, oh, okay. So the very arguments that I would usually have like moral concern about obviously don't get to play a role here anymore, because like actually turns out she wasn't, and like she didn't have custody and all these things. Like that's where the relativism comes in, because if there were no double standards, the left would have no standards at all, right?
But like I said, it is a tragedy that like there are a lot of like people on the left who are of the same, you know, same proclivity as you, not proclivity, but like the same identity as you are, and it is kind of like, I mean, I know I'm not gonna, like, again, I'm gonna hate for this, but like I understand like people, I'm not going to name names, but like certain people that have gone against it to say like, okay, you know, you should have a sense of stewardship towards people who are in the same civilization as you, who have been gone astray. But like you're saying, like the material fact of it is that, you know, this woman put her kid in danger. She was, you know what I mean? Like
well, I don't know if I don't think her kids were there at all. The claim was starting out that like she was taking a kid to school.
Right.
And then it's like, well, that clearly did not be the case. Yeah. And she didn't have custody of the kids either. And her, I think her ex-husband had, you know, taken his own life at some point. And so like you're left looking at all of this, and it's just like, it really just, it really does just go so far to point out just like, this is how bad things are and how they've gotten. But I bring up very specifically her, because, you know, at the end of the day, like what is she protesting for on behalf of? And it's like, well, there has been either through, you know, popular YouTubers and or other people that have decided to make the central issue about like Somali fraud, you know, to be front and center. And it's like, of course, that's in Minneapolis. And there are other problems too, like in Dearborn, Michigan, and the rest, that have made, you know, like we have now imported a large degree of civilizationally incompatible people into the United States. In other parts of the West too, but America's like really bad, and no one can deny that very obvious truth. And I mean, as much as I want to be like, you know, playful and joke and just be, and I did it for the title because why not, you know, just like Big Trouble in Little Mogadishu.
To be fair, my title was more serious, but yeah, it was a good
title.
And
I mean, I went for the shitpost, which will one day be the death of me, I'm sure. It'll be the death of any professional chances I have doing this. But like, but so like, okay, here we are, and I did all this, and you look at all of what's taken place, and then all of a sudden you have to come to like the very ugly conclusion that just like, you're right, we should have better stewardship or better care for those that have been absolutely brain fucked or whatever. But then at the same time, you great, like the literally one-shotted, you know, Mesoamerican corn demon style. Well done.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, like you have the very ugly conclusion that it's just like at a certain point, there's, you know, what do you do to either break that conditioning or to like have they've become a complete enemy combatant, right? And you know,
right.
And like that's I think that they're like, this is why the certain era of like, I think what like Dave Green tries to do so often, like, you know, actually have conversations with liberals, and the same thing with like Benjamin Boyce. Like it's a world that it feels out of place and out of time, because well, like who does that anymore? You know, like who actually has those conversations or who tries to? And I'm not saying that you shouldn't, because in a large part, I would love to see that world still exist. but I also feel like it's so far gone that I'm just like, what am I to say? What am I to do? And that
Well,
leaves you
true.
really uncomfortable in asking, well, what does that mean for me? Like, where do I go from here?
But there's something that and what I meant, like, to address who was in the chat that said this, Malwaz 950, where you're beating around the bush. If the radicalization is a problem, this will lead to a solution, should be encouraged. No, I mean, like, I'm not saying that radicalization is a problem. I mean that, like, from the perspective of an elite that is, like, totally morally baseless and Machiavellian, that you would want to encourage things that can de-radicalize your most, populations that
how do I demoralize
agency.
military age men who don't have a wife and kid?
Yeah, who have historically been have the most agency in any civilization.
Who historically are usually the people that, like, kill you.
Exactly. So, like, how do you get them to be compliant in the sort of, like, post Cold War end of history world order? Is, like, that's the question from an elite perspective. But I think it's something that, like, now listen, I say this not endorsing everything he says, not endorsing, like, him going to war with influencers or whatever. There was a recent stream by Academic Agent that he talked about this. He's like, well, when it comes to, like, leftists who are, like, of European descent, wouldn't you want an elite plan that does have a sense of stewardship or governance over everybody within your car, right? To quote Thomas, like, instead of just having, like, a sort of like a sadism or, like, a cartoonish type of attitude. And I think, like, that is a good critique, like, barring all of, like, the right faction wars and all that, and I hate this person, I hate that person, I don't like this person. But I think, like, just in terms of, like, isolating the context and just focusing on that idea, I do think that there is something to be said about, if you have a non-populist, elitist, reactionary political project, then ultimately you do have a sense of stewardship even to people that hate you. And, like you were saying, Prude, what will you do about people that have a very self-destructive and civilizationally eroding worldview of, like, whatever you want to call it, transnational progressivism, contemporary leftism, or whatever? Like, how can you be a proper, noblesse elite oblige, even to people that may be your sworn enemy? And I think, like, that is, in a lot of ways, it's idealistic, and maybe perhaps it is unrealistic from a realpolitik perspective. But I think, like, just having a very cavalier attitude about it is something that is always a mistake with any ascendant political movement, I feel. Not to say, like, I endorse democracy or anything, like, but
no, but in the same way that, like, I would like small L liberal things that I think are good, however good they may be. But, like, I also recognize that, like, the reason why I find them good is because they apply to a very particular, like, archetype of people.
True.
A place and time that may not functionally exist. And so, like, there's the politics and nostalgia that all plays a role here. All of this to say that there are too many fucking Somalians in my country who should not be here. And
America went to war with them, and they brought
America had and that's what we're here to talk about. We're here to review to the 2001 all-star studded cast film Black Hawk Down, which I'm really glad that you had mentioned Zulu earlier, because despite the fact that this is Somalians and everything like that, like, this is a piece of American media that still in a large way touches on, like, the racial issue in the United States, which is blacks and whites, which we don't see get discussed anymore because, we didn't go to war with blacks in the global war on terror. We went to war mainly on Middle Eastern populations. I don't want to just say Arabs, but Arabs and others.
Yeah, Persians.
Arabs, Persians,
North
Afghans, just the large, I guess what you could just call, like, the Middle East diaspora of Middle Eastern
Islamic
peoples.
populations.
Yeah.
And
and I mean, I grew up I mean, obviously, full contextualization here. I'm 4F. I did not serve. Gio is Canadian. Gio did not serve in the Canadian Armed Forces. We are not veterans of any conflict, war, or whatever. We did not hold rank. But we are both uniquely exposed to the global war on terror, just in the same way that a lot of people our age were, because we grew up with it. I grew up with it kind of intimately, just because my father was in the military for X number of years. And you're kind of left looking at that, wondering, what was it all for? What did my dad do? And of course, he had just joined the military. Oh goodness. The first major thing he really did after basic training was like the Gulf War. So H.W. Bush. So this all took place in the 90s. Obviously, this was happening around the same time my dad was in the military, and then he got out in the first Trump administration 30 years later. And it is kind of really interesting to see how all this is like taken place and taken shape, because Somalia, of course, is still an issue. It is considered, it has always been a place that has been memed upon for libertarian reasons, and nothing really more than that. Like, well, if you want to be an anarcho-capitalist, then you should just go to Somalia because there are no rules there. And it's like, I remember that. I remember this being a meme. I remember forum culture 15, 20 years ago.
The Free State Project chapter in Somalia.
Yeah. The Ron Paul for president, mailing address was set to Mogadishu. I remember these memes.
That's great.
I remember libtards doing like the whole libertarianism, just go to Somalia bit, which is strange considering, like, in the cultural memory for American politicians and Americans general, like, Black Hawk Down is the film that I think a lot of people think of when it comes to American involvement in Somalia and the Clinton administration.
It memorialized Operation Gothic Serpent. Yeah,
really but also like the entirety of like our short stint in Somalia, not to say that it is a short stint because we're still involved in anti-piracy operations off the Horn of Africa, but like it is a particularly interesting one because it gets erased so quickly in the cultural memory because, well, what did we do shortly after our time in Africa? Well, we had
to wait about 8 years or so before Second Gulf War. So.
And it's a film that comes out
in 2001.
It comes out in limited select theaters in December of 2001. This did not get a massive theatrical push. It received a lot of controversy when the film came out.
Mm-hmm.
I remember, if memory serves, I think Dick Cheney had said, a lot of people call this an anti-war film. Actually, I would say that, like it's a pro-American film.
I think the State Department would have direct involvement in this film if I were seeing it, back then. But
if I were maybe more politically inclined, or maybe had a different political attitude, or knew what I knew now, I'd be like, I wonder how much of a role the State Department had in this. But then, like, you look at who's involved, and it's like Bruckheimer and Nolan, and then you have all these like other weird projects that are also going on at the same time with like
wasn't Ridley Scott the director though?
Yeah, Ridley Scott. But, I think not the Nolan that we all know. It was a different Nolan who was like one of the writers. But like you're just thinking to yourself, like this is all like really interesting. How did we get into this situation? And then if you look at the Wikipedia page, it's like, well, what were they all working on at the time? And it's like, like one of them would leave to like not work on Terminator 3, and then they did this film. And it's another Hartnett war film is what a lot of people would criticize it to be. But also then, like, you have the obvious racial connotation. And it's strange. So I watched this film last Saturday, so just a couple of days ago, and I didn't have a lot of notes on the logistics or the military of it. It was, I guess it spoke to me kind of personally. And it spoke to me personally in the same way that, like, Generation Kill does, or any story about Afghanistan, because it's still, for me, in the cultural memory of like we're dealing with we're deployed near like a majority Muslim area. We're obviously in a conflict with them, and it is also the question of like the post-war order of America being like this police like men for the world. And the heavy debates that came around that, despite
the New American Century.
The New American Century Project, the Center for literally the Center for the New American Century, and all of these people that would that are still involved in politics today. So like
Freedom House, yeah.
Yeah, like so like during the Biden administration, CNN did this whole thing about wargaming what a conflict with China would look like potentially over Taiwan. And it had a lot of the people that were responsible for like the New American Century Project and the American security for the 21st century and things like that. And you're like, wow, like some things never really do, like some things never change.
Is it the one where the models kept saying that America would lose?
No, it was the ones that would say that like China would functionally
stop existing,
deploy a nuclear weapon to basically force a stalemate.
Oh,
one nuclear weapon just to say like we will escalate this after things have been brought to a tie.
Yeah.
And I was like, when Charlemagne and I covered this like a couple of years ago, it was like it was very fascinating to me that this was the thing being addressed. And it's like, oh, okay, like this is where we're at. And so I'm watching this film, and I mean, like, obviously there is the racial component to it. And I think in a lot of ways, it's the last film that is sort of like explicitly a monolithically white American force and military versus obviously like the a literal rising tide of color, which like you don't have to like that phrase, you don't have to like that term, so be it, but it is an interesting one to say the least, because now you're looking at the world now and it's just like, well, the military is still, even now with our adventurism in Caracas, like that was basically all white guys, like I'm sure that there were like Hispanics or whoever else involved that were like, you could say competent, but like when it comes to killing people or when it comes to actually getting the dirty work done, American Special Forces have always relied on a specific, type of people. And it has always been mainly, above all things, white Americans, particularly of Scots-Irish descent, who are considered like the fighters. And that America also in large part has dynastic families when it comes to the military. Yeah. And in fact, my family is like, well, I don't want to say it's one of those because my parents have never been like, my family has never been officers, but my parents and my grandparents and my father's lineage has always served. And I mean, that obviously ends with me because my brothers don't want to do it and I'm 4F anyway. But like, it is something that really speaks to like the consciousness of the American identity, that like this was a very explicitly American thing.
What's 4F, Prude, for those?
It just means that like you're not eligible. You're either too ill or whatever. Yeah. Like you're not someone who can join the military. And so anyways, I say all that because it's like this film for me was like, wow, this is like really personal, because this is like something that my dad has talkked about, like Serbia. My dad has talked about places he's been to all the time, and it's just
went to Serbia.
Well, there's stuff that not during like the war itself, but like there's America has been there also for all sorts of reasons. I remember he'd said that he'd been to like Kosovo and things like that. My dad was not an officer. My dad was not any kind of
intelligence officer.
No, he was not. I can that I can say for sure. He was not an intelligence officer. No, he was not.
Prude's voice is trembling there. I think he wants to pull the wool. No, I'm kidding.
No. I mean, I'm trying to be very careful because I also don't want to like.
Because there's some.
I don't want to dox myself either, because it's just like.
I was gonna say like there's be some fucking idiots that would say like, oh, see, Prude is obviously a glow in the dark. He's obviously
if Prude was a glow in the dark, I'd have much better fucking production quality, and I wouldn't be driving a 2008 fucking Honda Civic. Like, oh, buddy, if I were getting checks from somebody, I wouldn't be I wouldn't be having a fight with my fiance where I tell her like, I really just want to like DM somebody who like runs this one media company and be pissy and petty. And she's like, don't do that. That's not in good form. But I'm like, I really want to be a bitch. No, I'm not. I fucking
be waking up at fucking 6 every morning and going to your wagey job to like.
I wake up at 6 a.m. every morning to go to my wagey job, and I think about seppuku all the time. So no, overall though, like the film has a very personal like ode to me, because it's just like, this is some of America's like best and most competent men, right, who are capable of committing great evil on my behalf. And it's the same thing too, that like I see all this and you see all this like bloodshed, and then of course there is the reality that like one of these guys had his body dragged through the fucking streets and they were celebrating. And it's just like you're left being angry, and you have every right to be angry about it, because it's like this was an evil and terrible thing that had taken place.
And that was before, where they were the aid workers, they would hang them on the naked
Yeah,
in the Euphrates
and
River.
so it's just
Yeah.
like it goes back to what you and I were talking about before we even went live on the air. Is that like, oh, there are like there are people that like you just can't help.
Yeah.
And even if you do try to quote unquote help, all that you have done now is functionally
Put
allowed
yourself in
them.
a bad
Yeah,
situation.
you put yourself in a bad situation.
Yeah.
Because like now all of a sudden they're gonna come here and they're gonna take advantage of you, and then you're gonna get screwed over by it. And it's just like,
And
oh
then
well,
you're
I
gonna
know
look like a
exactly what that
monster.
looks like. That's
Yeah.
Ilhan Omar. You know,
That-
these brave men 30 years later, if any of them are still alive, what are they gonna fucking deal with when they see on the television? They get to see how Ilhan Omar tells them that they're racist and that they're bigots.
My
Fuck
opinion
you.
on Middle Eastern and African politics geopolitically, again, to quote a great man, Scott Adams, just stay the fuck away. There's no fixing this. You
So
can't
true.
fix this.
So
you
true.
can't fix this. Just stay the fuck away. You can't. You're not going to fix the politics of Africa. You're not going to fix the politics of the Middle East. I'm sorry. You have a better chance of fixing the politics of East Asia than you do. And even then, that's the Chinese. It's a different animal. But like, no, when it comes to Middle Eastern African politics, just stay the fuck away. There's no fixing this. Like the way that Scott, like his voice, I could just hear it in my head.
You just gotta stay the fuck away.
There's no fixing this. Like it's like literally no. There's no fixing it. I'm sorry. Like that's what came up with when you and Dimes reviewed the Rodney book. Like,
oh yeah, Walter Rodney's
They're-
How Europe
they're-
Underdeveloped Africa, and you're just like, there's no fixing this.
yeah,
And it's the same thing with like James
yeah.
Baldwin, because like even James Baldwin had famously gone out of his way to like see Europe, and like he knew that he was fundamentally a stranger.
Yeah.
In the same way that like I'm sure James Baldwin, I mean, he didn't like America either.
But he was a true FBA. He was a foundational Black American.
Yeah,
He,
I mean,
yeah.
but at the end of the day, right? Like there was no belonging,
Yeah.
and that he knew that like he was a stranger there, and he did not belong. And it's like the same thing too in a lot of ways here, where it's just like these guys are obviously strangers to this neck of the woods, this part of the continent, this part of the world, period. And you're just like, okay, well, like this is now the world that they're like fighting in. They go where Uncle Sam tells them. Like obviously these men sign up to do this, and that these men know that like there is some significant risk that comes with being deployed. But at the same time, like
having a whole city come down on you, they weren't
having a whole
expecting
city
that.
come down on you, and then also just like even the best of technology and the best of planning can easily go wrong. Like all missions can go wrong. And so it's just like, well, now you have to prepare for it. And again, it's just the film does a very good job at illustrating that the old George Orwell quote, that like we sleep soundly at night because that there are good men who are willing to do the absolute evil on our behalf. And it's
Well,
like, yep, so true.
When it comes to the actual mission of Somalia, just the technical grounds, there was a great. I know it did appeal to like the more like leftward like anti-colonialism, like American imperialism thing, but I think it was either the Canadian journalist Robert Young Pelton or it was the American journalist Robert Frisk. I think it was Robert Frisk who did this great documentary on Somalia and Black Hawk Down that you could find on YouTube. That he goes back to Somalia with some veterans who I believe had subsequently or became officers during the Iraq War. And he was talking about how the whole thing was a giant cock up to begin with, because they actually were going to negotiate a deal with Mohammed Afero Aidid to not target aid workers. But there was some kind of like mistrust of intelligence. And so they ended up lobbing tow missiles into the negotiating building that they were doing it in. So that deal was quashed. But also when it came to the strategic military thing, they could have informed the joint like Pakistani and UN coalition that they were going to do this mission. And also they were going to have an AC-130 for, if you've played Call of Duty, you know this, right? Like that is very good air equipment in terms of special forces because of its accuracy. Very good for like exfil missions and so on and so forth. If they would have had an AC-130, they wouldn't have been so strained in terms of relying on various Black Hawk helicopters and those Delta Force helicopters with the miniguns it could have been way smoother. So there was a number of like, even though, I guess to use like a Baudrillardian analysis, the whole thing was televised. They were viewing the mission from cameras in these helicopters, and the whole thing was like this, the sort of like the testing out of the land warrior system, where like the soldiers would carry cameras and the helicopters had cameras, and the talk and the command center and the general had the direct access.
Yeah, this was like the same thing that we had done overseas
with the Gulf War.
In the Gulf War, where it's like everything had some interconnected system.
Yeah.
And if you look at our electronic warfares, like even the graphs from back then, it's just like, okay, everything had a way in which they could communicate with one another.
Yeah.
There was no risk. There was no if, ands, or buts. This was how things were going to be. You could always be on the phone or on the line with somebody without any concern until you get on the ground. And then,
the fog of war happens.
Well, that it's just like anything can go wrong at any point in time. Communication can go bad, falls.
Helicopters can go down. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And so it's just like, well, this is where we're at now. And we got to watch that all play out.
That's what Schwarzkopf
covers it. Yeah.
That's what Schwarzkopf said during Gulf War I. He said he was giving an interview to CNN, obviously, because he would do these daily interviews with CNN, where he said that, the American soldier will now get the best equipment, will get the best resources, and the soldier is no longer, like, in a weird way, it was almost like the American GI is like detached from the usual traditional notion of a soldier being
the most technologically advanced and connected man.
Yes, but he's uniquely, in the past, he was uniquely at the precipice of death all the time. That now the technological man, the American soldier, is no longer in the precipice of death at every waking moment in the battlefield. That was like the way that Schwarzkopf sold the war to the American people, as Virilio talked about in his book.
Yeah. But also, like, you read this too in a lot of military science fiction of like the GWAT era. For instance, I've referenced them a lot of times. They're a lot of fun. I should probably reread the books or maybe talk about them on a stream. Like Robert Buettner's Orphanage series, like that guy was an actual spook. He was some sort of intel officer, or he was some kind of I think he says he was an intelligence officer. Doesn't say what specifically, but anyways, so like and he's very cribbing off of Starship Troopers, but he's like doing Starship Troopers with like the post Gulf War era technology. And as a veteran of that time, like he was very explicit. He's just like the average American soldier, for in his sci-fi world, which is basically just like post GWAT, or like post Gulf War. He's just like, yeah, they functionally had gear that, the average soldier that was deployed to Korea could like only dream about,
Oh yeah. There was this one guy, I remember this one veteran, it was a History Channel documentary, and he said like you could never, during the height of the battles in Korea, because of the fog, you could never see them. And so he's like, I had basically a box of hand grenades, and I would just like, every time I saw a shadow, I would just lob a hand grenade at them. And it's like, that's insane. You don't know what you're seeing in front of you. There's no fucking Call of Duty, heat sensor, ACOG scope. Like, no, there's none of that. It's like,
there's no ACR with a heartbeat, radar monitor thing.
He's like, my American.
There's no hit marker.
My Garand was essentially useless, and so I could just lob grenades at people. That was it. Like, imagine how terrifying. And then, of course, you hear all the stories about the Chinese troops in Korea resorting to cannibalism and all of the stories like that. But it's like, imagine being like, you're put in hell. That's like the vision of hell that you could think of on Earth. And it's like, okay, you have to fight in frigid temperatures. There you go. Have at it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I know, like, it's always that stereotype of like different veterans of different wars in America. They like, I had it worse than you. I had it worse than you.
The often memed about thing.
Yeah.
It came also from King of the Hill.
Yeah. But in a way, you could say that like Vietnam soldiers and even like Iraq veterans who are like, weirdly enough, like very close to our age, Prude, especially me, I'm in my 30s now. They kind of did have it worse because like the average day of combat, I believe for the average World War II soldier was, I think 12 days a year or like 20 days a year.
Something like that.
But the average day of combat for a soldier in Vietnam was 200 days. So it's like, because it's a different war. It's asymmetrical warfare. Same with Iraq. Like, they were a police force, more or less. And that's terrifying, because it wasn't that, you would have a battle with the insurgents. It was like, you drive past the road and a pile of garbage had an IED in it. You know what I mean? Or a fucking tree had an IED in it.
Yeah, and it's also the same thing that each war, the previous war, fundamentally influences the next one politically, because 2004 has the fundamental question of like, is Iraq turning into is this America's Vietnam for the 21st century?
Right.
And of course, you had two presidents who were of military age at the time of the Vietnam War. Of course, George W. Bush served in the Air National Guard, whereas, Kerry famously said that he had 3 Purple Hearts and that he would throw them over, towards the White House as a protester after his time in the Army came to an end. It was also the last war that had a draft, and we don't have that conversation at all anymore. And so it's just like we're in a fundamentally different point in time.
Well, that's unthinkable, a draft.
It's unthinkable now, because you would have race riots that would make the 1861 New York race riot, or just the draft riot, look like a joke. It just would not happen, because good luck. And it's the same, like, if you think the memes on Twitter about like, I'm not dying for Israel are real, like, well, wait until the draft happens. And then like every 18-year-old guy, whether it's like, Deshaun Johnson or, someone Martinez, like, it's called into the conflict, like, good luck. I'd like to see how that plays out in major U.S. cities. Imagine every 18-year-old, quote unquote, legal Somalian who is technically a U.S. citizen by that odious practice of birthright citizenship. He gets his draft card. Good fucking luck. He's going to Somalia the next day.
Yeah, he just watched a Sneeko stream. He's not going to do that.
Yeah. He knows better.
No, yeah, constant deployment. Well, the thing is also in World War II, like, they were fighting a highly organized, highly uniformed, highly trained German army. There's no comparison. You know what I mean? Like, they were, the closest approximation would obviously be the Ukrainian war. Like, they're both very, for whatever you could say about the Russians or the Ukrainians, they're both highly capable, highly trained soldiers in uniform.
Like that is the first basic. I mean, even then, it is very lopsided in terms of the conflict itself.
Logistics,
but logistically. But I mean, like, it is technically the only, like, right now peer-to-peer conflict that's happening in the world as we know it.
And like I always say, like, people, you could accuse me of being a Russia shell, but like, I gotta say, like, the degree of competency of the Ukrainian armed forces is like, you can't compare. You know what I mean? Like, they are a legitimate
fighting force.
They're a legitimate army. They've been able to withstand power with greater logistics for 3 years now, almost 4 years. So I will take nothing away from Ukrainian veterans, obviously. But when it comes to Somalia, though, there was a lot of strategic failures there. And I think the film, for it being accused of war propaganda, which, I mean, given the greater context of the war in Iraq that was starting up.
Yeah, like, this film comes out months after 9/11. Like, there's a lot you can say about this being propagandistic, but like, this film had been in production before 9/11 had come out.
And it was a fairly accurate depiction.
And we're here to tell a story about things that had actually taken place. This isn't like, this isn't going to be like an Audie Murphy film, where like there might be some elements that are true, but also this is to sell like a home value, propagandistic thing. This isn't Sergeant York, despite the fact I really like that movie. I also know that what it is a piece of propaganda.
Oh, and then you had all the bullshit films that came later with all the direct military propaganda films, like that one Soldier of Valor or whatever, something Valor.
Wasn't that like a TV series covering America's time in Vietnam, if memory serves me correctly?
No. There was an Iraq war film where like the jihadis were going through the Mexican border.
Oh, I don't recall this one.
Act of Valor. And then
there are a lot of. I'm sure there are a lot of
30,
like. I think there's a lot of like global war on terror films I probably have not seen.
Yeah.
Not because I haven't
new metal soundtracks.
I haven't had the desire to. It's just that I just haven't seen them.
You know why I really loved this film? Because they had a song from Days of the New in it. They had Die Born from Days of the New. That was like such a great. I remember hearing that when I was.
That's what speaks to you, is just the film soundtrack.
No, that's what like originally got me
Ah,
invested in the film. Yeah, when I was younger. Yeah, what is Oliver Stone? Oliver Stone calls the recruitment films. Yeah, but so the whole mission
he
goes
did, yeah.
awry. We all know what happened in the film. We're not going to like review the blow by blow thing, but the whole mission goes awry.
This film is
And
25 years old. You can watch this on your own time.
yeah,
I
yeah.
think I think it's very interesting to look back on it now. One, in the context of like all of the ongoing like Somali fraud shit going on, but
Mhm.
also,
Well, you talk a little about that, Prude, like the connection that
well,
when you were
sure.
watching
So
the
like
film.
this
Yeah.
is, I'm glad that you had mentioned like the people who compared it to Zulu
Yeah.
because like this is a very, as I mentioned, like this is like one of the last films that it's a film that covers like the war or this conflict and this happening that no one really talks about.
A horde
Um,
down on a very small group of soldiers. Yeah.
yeah, down on a very small group of soldiers. It's part of, a quote unquote peacekeeping operation in the midst of foreign aid towards a country that has never had really any standing form of government that is considered to be,
A
as I mentioned
legitimate
earlier,
state. Yeah.
yeah, like it's just a place that has no sovereignty, no anything, and so it often gets it's memed as the anarchy libertarian paradise, which I really think is stupid, but neither here nor there. Um, and so it's particularly strange because, like, in the same way that we've heard all of the stories before, invade the world, invite the world, because like now what are we doing with and what are we dealing with here? It's like the same kind of thing, wherein like after Vietnam, a lot of Vietnamese people came into the United States, and then after this stuff here in Somalia too, like a lot of people, a lot of Somalis came to the U.S. and it's just like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
And I think and it's on top of all of this, like the Nick Shirley stuff, the everything, and it's just like, okay, cool. Like, it's very strange that in America's like post-racial, and I can't even say it's post-racial. It's really just like it's like public anti-white environment that the only thing that we've got really allowed to discuss now is, there is in a post-national moment, yeah,
Legalisms. Yeah.
in a post-national moment, the obvious fact that like this is the nation of the United States. What does that even mean in the context of Somali fraud? It's just like, well, the things that we would have taken for granted for about what does it mean to be an American, what is an American soldier, those things don't get to be discussed anymore because now the Somali is technically your neighbor, and it's just like, well, that's bullshit. Like I fought a war against this guy, or like I had buddies who died there. And it's the same thing too with like Afghanistan and the rest. You're just left reeling over the fact that like I have to accept obvious bullshit for the sake of because my government said so.
Yeah.
And I think that there's just the obvious, like there is an obvious racial dynamic here, and I think that like that's not. I don't think there's anything wrong to acknowledge that that's just true. That at the end of the day, like these people, like we fought, like we know what kind of people they are, and that like we've seen the rampant lawlessness that comes out of it. Like, what are we doing here?
There was a great scene. My favorite scene in Black Hawk Down was when they captured Mike Durant after Gordon and Shugart gave their lives to
save him,
or at least to hold off them. Yeah. And he, they realized he was a pilot, and so he was valuable. There's his handler that they actually did have. I think in real life, they actually still like kept in contact with each other. Because the guy like saved his life, like they could have butchered and tortured him, right? So he said they're talking about it, and he's like, "Do you want a cigarette?" He goes, "I don't want a cigarette." He goes, "That's right, no Americans smoke anywhere. You live very long, dull, and boring lives. Whereas here in Somalia, the rest of the world, he goes, violence and killing and death, that is negotiation." But then he's like, "Well, listen, I have no power. I'm just a pilot. I can't. My government's not going to negotiate." And he goes, "Well, you have the power to kill, but you don't have the power to negotiate, do you?" In other words, the American soldier is a functionary of a greater structure, of this sort of notion of that the world can become a very comfortable and peaceful place, but also a very complacent place that is just focused on bare life and to maintain that. Whereas, like in the rest of the world, where violence and tribal warfare and warlordism are the norm, it's like that you're always living on the precipice of life and death, which is something that even to the mind of what is traditionally a role to be a soldier is to live on the precipice of life and death. That almost becomes an impossibility. And I was actually,
Yeah,
if you wanted to say something, I have.
No,
this
I think that
other-
it is true that like I think that there is the post Cold War condition that Americans fundamentally became. We became like the most death avoidant society on earth.
Right. Yeah.
And I mean, I think this is why COVID scared the shit out of so many people, regardless of whatever you think about the disease or whatever thing that politically came forward from it. Like,
Right.
what
Exactly.
makes COVID an interesting thing from like a socio-political standpoint is that like it was the first time since 9/11 that America and the American people had to deal with just like the conceptualization of mortality that wasn't a far off thing, or it wasn't something that like you just accepted, like, oh, like grandma died, or like, oh, that's so sad, and like, oh, that's fine, like it wasn't distant from you anymore. Like it was very explicit, it was very in your face, and there was nothing that you could do about it because like it was a disease. You couldn't do anything about it. And in the same way that previous generations, like you could say that they ate, drank, and be merry, or that they did smoke because that was the norm or that was the culture. But also like every American for like 40 to 50 years fundamentally knew that if something blew up in like West Germany, that like 50 new sunrises were going to peer over like the Slovakia Gap, and that was the end of the world as you knew it. And that was the kind of mortality that people lived under, was like death could come at any time, so you might as well just live. And then that came to an end in the early 90s, and then you had to ask yourself, well, like, what do we do now? Because like now I don't have to really worry about anything. I've got
and then like the birth rates declined, and like
I've got power, I've got everything on my side, and I've got this like grand promise, just like what's in the like from the Schwarzkopf speeches, but also that's very much alluded to in the film, and how they set up and how things are talked about and planned and devised, and how there's constant communication until shit hits the fan and you're on the ground. That like there is nothing that technically is outside of your realm of control or command, and so like, you don't have to worry about anything now. And
now you have to conform to to a world that's alien to you.
Yeah, like you're now back in time. Like congratulations, you were back in the Bronze Age, or congratulations, you're back in the Stone Age. And there is no getting away from that anymore, because now you have to fundamentally accept the fact that this is a world that America, culturally, politically, etc., has not had to experience more or less since the days of the frontier and the Indian Wars.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we haven't had to deal with that. And of course, like it's really interesting that this film comes out like again, like right after 9/11, and it gets treated like this, big propaganda film, rah. And like, don't get me wrong, the action in this film is fantastic.
Oh, it's superb. It's the best war film.
It's probably one of the best war films ever made. And like there's no hands down debate about that. But then at the same time, like you look at it now, 30 plus years later, since the events of like what happened in Mogadishu, and 25 years later since the film came out, and it's just like, well, it has all this baggage of like, well, this is also a war film, and it's just like, well, yeah, it's a war film, but like it's a war film about like shooting non-whites and taking on terrorism and dealing with like ravenous like masses and hordes. This is not so bad and so like problematic, and it's just like not at a time, because America 25 years ago had a pretty cohesive national identity. And of course, America was like, probably like 70% white at the time. Like there was a de facto, identity and culture that everyone just accepted to be true. And now we don't have that anymore.
Well, and 9/11 reacquainted Americans with death as well in a mass.
Yeah, and then 9/11, exactly. It reacquainted Americans with death, and it brutally reminded Americans that there is a world. As my mother had described it to me when I was a kid, she says, really all that it told you is that evil exists in the world.
Yeah.
And, evil exists, and that it's nasty and it's ugly and it sucks. But unfortunately, like, this is why people do the jobs that like, that my dad did or whatever. It's just like you become a soldier, you join the military because like you want to make sure that evil doesn't affect you. And like it's a nice moral story to tell your kids, but it's also one, like politically speaking, it's really good to tell
very
the country.
Yeah. It's like, complicated by facts on the ground, though.
Oh yeah, I mean it's complicated by facts on the ground, but it's also
just too specific into 9/11 in my theory of it. But like,
right, like all of a sudden, like, oh, this gets really complicated because like the Saudis are here, but also like the Israeli question, like there's a million other things that like get really uncomfortable
Yeah.
in that discussion, and it's just like really whereas like the Somali conflict, I mean, as complicated as it is in regards to say our relationship to the United Nations, or like what we were doing there, is this a peacekeeping operation, are we going to transition this government, etc., etc.
And then the failures in Rwanda a year
That
after.
too, like, I
Yeah.
mean, because prior to 9/11, like, what is the big foreign policy or humanitarian crises of the time? It's places like Somalia, it's Darfur,
Chad.
it's
Yeah.
Chad, it's Sudan, which still remains an issue even to this day, with South Sudan declaring independence several years ago, and all the political consequences therein.
Mm.
Like, it's Africa was the place. And it's funny because before we went live on the air, I was asking Gio if he had ever saw the movie Sahara, which is based off of a Clive Cussler novel. It's a Dirk Pitt adventure, and the movie did not do well. It's one of my dad's favorites. It's his comfort movie. But like, there's I guess one of the B plots, there's like an African warlord character of this country, and he's just like, it's Africa. Nobody cares about Africa. And to some extent, there's probably truth to that. I mean, it's not really until Africa comes to like Europe that it's really an issue, or to America where it's really an issue. But even then, like, it's the same thing here. Like, this was the hot spot of politics and international crises right before we were getting super involved in 9/11.
Well, even culturally, you had like the whole like Toto's Africa.
Yeah, like
you had the big
Pan-Africanism also
South
gets like
African stuff. Yeah,
yeah, post-apartheid. Like, now it's like having to deal with the consequences of post-colonialism.
Yeah.
And
The
that's
90s
really
was
what
like
this
the
is.
African moment, in a
Yeah,
lot
and I
of
mean,
ways,
that's really the interesting thing too. Is you're right. There is the description of like the African moment, and like also like this is the 1990s. Like, Pan-Africanism kind of has its like day in the sun again, and then at the same time, there's also I mean, fuck, Kwanzaa becomes a thing really in the 90s, or gets kind of like publicly promoted by the Clinton administration. Like, it's just another non-Christian holiday in the December time frame, and then also like you have the weird Black Jewish relationship. But anyways, it is particularly interesting now to look back on it, because it's just like, oh well, like, it's the same thing when we talk about like the Days of Rage. Like, if you read a lot of these like manifestos, you're like, huh, that's like really strange. Why is it like that? And why are we fulfilling every single wish list that like the Weather Underground had, except maybe we haven't completely gotten rid of prisons?
Well, the 70s was an African thing, because the
Oh,
60s they loved India, and like Timothy Leary went to India, but like
you had it was the 60s and 70s were like the age of New Age religions and Eastern spirituality.
But then it pivoted to Africa in the 70s with the post-colonialism and with the
Civil rights
and the strategic funding by the West and by the Soviet Union towards various post-colonial powers against older European powers, and also like leftist radicals in America. They had the big like Africa thing as well. It was like really a vibe, and then it came back in the 1990s, but in a different like sort of kind of new agey way as well. Like, it was because I guess like the early 90s there was a big revisiting of the new age movement in the 60s, like in music. You had even like popular music like Blind Melon was like reviving the psychedelic rock stuff, and folk music was really big at this time. So, and then of course, geopolitically, you have, I mean, even to this day, North Africa in particular has a strategic geopolitical importance. And so I wanted to read this thing. I was actually clanking with ChatGPT about this before the stream. And, for a lot of,
I like how you said clanking.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
That was very good. That was very tasteful.
But like,
you're either talking about AI or you're a big Styx Hexenhammer fan. It's one of the two.
Oh god, the spoon! I remember those BTR.
This clanks your spoons.
I remember
that.
Spoons in the chat. Yeah, a million.
Yeah, I remember that.
Anyways,
so you know how like when everyone tries.
Speaking of pirates.
Speaking of, but you have heard of me.
Yeah.
It's not my place to make fun of that. I just but him getting arrested looking like Jack Sparrow is really fucking funny. I won't lie.
That was funny, yeah.
It is, I not to delay what you were gonna say. I think it's really funny that how everyone tries to like when you get started on YouTube, like you try and imitate someone that you like, or you see a model that works, and you're like, yeah, I
Oh
could
yeah.
try that. So
Yeah.
for me, it was Styx Hexenhammer. I will not tell anyone this YouTube channel. It doesn't exist anymore. I have taken it down. But my first attempt was in 2015, and I
Oh,
would do 3 15-minute takes on a particular issue to rant about, and then I would upload them, and I would do this.
that was the model
Uh,
back then. It was a good
I would
choice.
do it 3 times a week. It is gone, but that was my attempt when I was still in college, and I thought, oh, I could try this. I got a couple hundred subscribers. Then I was like, well, I don't have time for this anymore, so I stopped. But yeah,
Imagine if you
everyone.
were to continue with that.
I could be a lol cow in the year of our Lord 2026. So
Yeah,
maybe I
yeah,
should be
yeah.
blessed that I'm not, and I
You've
don't
been
have to
working with
worry
Tim
about
Pool
that.
right now, yeah.
Yeah, I could have been. Yeah, I never learned how to skateboard, so probably not.
Yeah, yeah. That's the initiatory thing in the Tim
You got to
Pool.
learn how to
Mount Carmel.
skateboard, and you got to
Yeah.
do all that. Like I just, it never happened to me. So I guess I guess I'm up a creek, you know.
Yeah, well. But
Oh well, here we are.
anyways,
Go on,
oh,
Joe.
that was a good point,
what
actually.
Blanker have to say?
It was actually pretty good. I was gonna lie and say it was from some academic paper. No, it was actually a pretty good.
Should have
thing,
lied
so.
and said it was from you, and we would have been fine.
No, I know, but I have that capacity in me to not like to lie about my sources. So no, but I think it's from me because I was actually clanking very specific questions about the New American Century in that one particular scene in Black Hawk Down, and I thought it was a pretty good spiel. So I asked, Ray, your thoughts on the scene where the helicopter pilot Mike Durant's Somali handler / caretaker is talking about the Americans don't smoke anymore. You live dull and long, boring lives, and how it relates to this concept of the reality of post-Cold War end of history. So the clanker says, ChatGPT, the brief exchange between Mike Durant and his Somali handler is one of the most revealing moments in Black Hawk Down, precisely because it's a momentary break from the film's otherwise soldier-centric, action-driven perspective. In a movie that's largely reflected a post-Cold War American worldview, the line about Americans living dull and boring lives opens a window onto the limits of so-called end-of-history mentality. From a Western post-Cold War standpoint, especially the one associated with Francis Fukuyama's end of history thesis, the early 1990s were imagined as a settled moment. Liberal democracy had won. Ideological struggle was over. History would consist of management, consumption, and incremental progress. Within this framework, danger is an anomaly, and violence is something to be contained at the periphery of the system. Americans don't smoke anymore. They regulate themselves, extend their lives, and pursue comfort. Life becomes safer, longer, and arguably flatter. That's something that John Baudrillard said in his memoirs on his trip to America, by the way, about like the health craze in the 80s. Anyways, the Somali character's comments cuts directly against that assumption. When he mocks American dullness, he's not simply teasing Durant. He's articulating a worldview formed in a space where history is very much not ended. In Somalia, politics, violence, survival, and identity remains immediate and embodied. Risk is not abstract or outsourced to distant battlefields. It is everyday reality. Smoking, war, danger are not lifestyle choices, but expressions of a world where life is cheap and uncertainty is consistent. From that perspective, American safety reads not as a moral progress, but as a kind of spiritual impoverishment. What makes the scene especially powerful is its suggests coexistence without comprehension. Durant, and so this is actually where ChatGPT borders on some some truth nukes here. Durant and his handler share a moment of human connection, yet they inhabit fundamentally different temporal and moral universes. Durant comes from a society that believes he has moved beyond tragedy as a structuring force. The Somali handler comes from one where tragedy is the structure itself. This gap mirrors the broader failure of post-Cold War interventionism, the assumption that the rest of the world is either on its way to becoming like the West or merely lagging behind the same historical path. In this sense, the scene quietly undermines the new American century mindset. The U.S. intervention in Somalia is rooted in a belief that order, rationality, and humanitarian norms can be opposed by force. But the handler's comments imply that the American soldiers are not entering a broken version of their own world. They're entering a different reality altogether, one where its logic, values, and relationships to violence is different. The West's faith in progress and safety becomes not universal truth, but cultural particularity. Crucially, the film does not fully explore this insight. The Somali handler disappears from the narrative, just as Somali perspectives largely vanish behind the spectacle of combat. Yet the fleeting time line lingers because it hints at a deeper irony. The American who believes they are exporting stability are, in the eyes of those they encounter, emotionally unequipped for a world where history never stopped being brutal, bloody. Seen this way, the scene foreshadows the coming decades. The post-Cold War West imagined a future of dullness and peace. The rest of the world, still shaped by conflict, would not conform. Black Hawk Down inadvertently captures the moment just before that illusion collapses in Iraq and Afghanistan, when Americans still believed history had ended and others knew it hadn't. Whoa! I gotta say, I mean, that turned my opinion on AI. I mean, that was great. I could write that. You know, I kind of did, but like, that was great. That was, I don't know, like, I think like, you know, even academic scribblers couldn't match that, in my opinion. That was great. I was very proud of myself for that.
How does that make you feel?
How does that make me feel? No, I would say that like the different temporalities is a great point. And I think that it's partially hubris and it's partially an unyielding idealism that is not grounded by the recognition of difference. Because even though, like, you could say, like, if you look at the American culture, even Western culture, during the global war on terror, there was that huge emphasis on like otherness and like the reignition of like jingoism and racism and blah, blah, blah. But by the time you get to the Obama years, it was this weird disconnect between now our values can become truly universal and that there is no difference. Even though the American soldier is engaging in a world of perpetual difference where history very much is real in a very terrifying way. And you could say the same about like with Russia and Ukraine right now, right? And so I think it's a weird disconnect between the pretensions of the way that Westerners think about ourselves, especially I would say more so during the Obama era, because George W. Bush, he still had like a lingering sense of like, we're fighting a crusade, we're fighting a war of civilizations, and Samuel Huntington, blah, blah, blah. But by the time you get to the Obama years during the global war on terror, now you have gone. Like, it's gone. And now we have to pretend that everybody's the same everywhere. And that's why you can have a situation where you could spend 20 years bombing a country, but then importing those same people over here and not expecting to have any problems. Because when you enter the magic dirt of the Western world, it's like all of your history is just left behind. And you can enter this like postmodern nowhere land. But that's not reality. And that's what the handler the Somali was telling Mike Durant. He's like, well, you people have this notion that, you know, you've achieved a world of stability and peace, and you largely have, you know, but although I would say that during the 90s, there was like still a lot of problems and there was like race riots and stuff like that. But in terms of like a media depiction of it, it was saying that, you know, like we live a fundamentally different life. And no matter what you do, you can't change this. There's no changing. So you better stay the fuck away. There's no changing this, you know? And so I think in a weird way, even though the clanker, because of its safety rails and all that stuff, it's framing it in like a leftist post-colonial narrative. There's still, even though you can frame it as like, okay, that's like post-colonialism, that's third worldism, that's leftism, there still is a fundamental truth there that I think even academics are afraid to say, which is that, no, people are different. And you can't just impose this universal humanism on people, and it's always going to fail. And it's funny now because that sort of thing is still with us. I mean, people talk about Russia and they talk about Iran and they talk about Palestine and you know, or well, you know, in general. And so I think like the fact that we're dealing with people that have a fundamentally different relationship to both time and death is incomprehensible to a lot of people in the Western world.
Oh,
and I think that, you know, and I think that is a fair point. So what did you think about that, Prude, though?
I think it goes, you know, the old saying, a lot of people like to say it on Twitter where it's, you know, they'll quote like the whole, like, our morality is alien to you. But I mean, there's fundamental truth to that. Like the reality that we live in, or like the world that some of us, you know, don't think about is alien to us.
Right.
And it's just like, there's some big ugly consequences that kind of require you to be like, huh, okay, well, if it is truly that alien to us, what does that really mean? And I think that scene does a really good job at depicting that, because it's just like, yeah, you live such boring, safe lives, and it's just like, yeah, that's true. And it's just like no one smokes anymore. We're all super concerned about our health. We have health fads. We're all doing, the same usual bits that we're all, we all know about. We're all concerned about. We all talk
Well, in
about.
the 90s, it was peak like health grift. And I mean,
Oh,
nowadays it's peak health fad and grift.
well,
But now
yeah, but
back
except
then, yeah.
now anyone and their mother can really play a part of it. And it's just like, oh, that's really cool. That's really nice. That's really neat. But like, again, it really does go to show that we live in such a world, a time, and a place that like, unless you are part of a very select few in this world, like you're never gonna have to worry about encountering again something that is so considered to be alien and foreign and everything. And it's really sad when you consider that. But now, of course, that comes here. It's at home now, and so now the average American has to consider that that the world that the world they grew up in no longer exists. Like, that is true. The world you grew up in no longer exists, but now also like the world you grew up in has to deal with the fact that the very people that he's getting sort of culturally chastised by, they all live here now. Like they all live here, and you now have to deal with a world where like actually you do have to consider the consequences of living in a third world shithole. Like that's something that the average American, I don't think, is fundamentally prepared for. And I think in a lot of ways too, like there's the hatred of the Karen, because women have always been like the morality enforcers. And like, don't get me wrong, there are some annoying parts to like what we would call the Karen, but I think that hating on what used to be the old style of morality is particularly tragic, because it's just like all that this is that we live in a society where the agreed upon norms of how my parents grew up or how your parents grew up is considered wrong, or what people like often will say very denigratingly is just like, it's just white, and that's bad, and that's
or
evil.
It's socioeconomically untenable.
Yeah, or it's privileged, and it's not correct, and that's wrong, and that's evil, and that's but it's like, no, that used to be how the world worked, and we used to accept that was how things were because it was considered right, and it was considered acceptable, and it wasn't anything that was considered problematic, because again, at the end of the day, we didn't have to worry about the problem of there are Somali grifters that have like ruined millions of dollars in American taxpayer money, to where like Al-Shabaab is primarily funded by like the Minnesota taxpayer. Like, like again, that's such a world that doesn't exist. Or I mean, it's a world that those soldiers didn't fight for. It's a world that those guys didn't want to exist in. And here we are.
No, but also I think it's weird how we'll see what happens if economic forces get worse, because violence would not be far behind. Because, for example, in the 70s, you had, for various reasons, you had like the dawn of like, America became a very violent society. And
you had left-wing terror,
serial killers, people just would be more prone to violence in daily life. And that was preceded by a lot of conditions that were then wiped away in the 80s with a lot of excess and, machismo capitalism. But I wonder, though, if we had those conditions again, but now we have a demographic situation that's also different. It's like, I wonder, like, what Zoomers and now Gen Alpha kids will grow up into, and maybe the world of that generation wouldn't be so in stark contrast. Because I think that definitely Black Hawk Down, like the Clanker was saying, the two worlds kind of were incommensurable, but not everywhere in the 90s, specifically in Western Europe and in North America. But, I mean, there was the Asian financial crisis, but then if you were in Eastern Europe, you were living through hell. And
you were in the post-Cold War order.
Yeah, and if you were living in Russia, you were basically in hell, and if you were living in the Middle East, I mean, there was a lot of political tensions there that would then later erupt in the early 2000s. And so I think that it was sort of the world was different. Like I remember one time there was my mother long time ago had went to one of these like public meeting things or tours or sponsored by the UN or something like that, Canadian Peace Corps, because her best friend was in the Canadian Peace Corps, and it had this this box with this like repurposed recycled material fork and knife in it, and it was like your standard issue UN unit, blah blah blah. And I remember looking at that, being like, that was like the aid relief utensils,
Yeah.
and that was the universal idea in the 1990s. It was like, you had like the Global Peace Corps mission where we hand out MREs and utensils, and eventually we'll hand out cell phones to people. And it's like the sort of
well, it's the
that,
Fareed Zachariah thing where everyone was like, oh, well, like the rest of the West will catch up with the West, which in retrospect was a really weird way to just say like, oh, this is what Lothrop Stoddard was warning about, just in like correct language.
But it was sort of like that, like we're the world and we're no different type of thing. But and it was a weird thing how like an object from this idealistic era, and I believe I remember I saw the serial number and it was dated to like 2001 or something. And I'm like, man, that was like really in the popular ethos. That was like, we're all gonna like watch the Olympics every 4 years together, and we're all
gonna sing Kumbaya.
Do you remember the FIFA in South Africa? Like it was like the big coming out.
I don't know whose idea it was to come up with a fucking Vuvuzuela, but like, boy, oh boy, I feel like that was probably an indication that, hey, maybe we shouldn't do this, man.
It was. But the point being is like there was this idealistic moment of like largely Western global humanism that created very interesting like cultural and even material baubles. But then you fast forward through 20 years of war in the Middle East, and now 3-4 years of war in Eastern Europe, and God knows what's going to happen in Iran and China. It's like we kind of are returning to not a sense of the nation state as such, but in terms of global regional power blocks, as Mersheimer talks about, we kind of are like foregoing any of these like universal humanistic ideals. And a lot of these incidences, because in a lot of ways with Bill Clinton, Somalia was like the test of the notion of America as a global policeman. And it was the test of this universal humanistic ideal that we can, incrementally militarily intervene with the military might of America to right wrongs and to intervene. But then like what happens a year after in Rwanda, we didn't do fuck all about that.
No,
and I figured
we made a nice movie. And like, I think another fellow Canadian in the chat said, because I remember like in school, we were taught about this because Canada had a very significant thing in Somalia. Not Somalia, in Somalia, actually. My mom's friend actually went to Somalia. In Rwanda, with like Romeo Dallaire, if people remember my famous rant against Romeo Dallaire. So Canadians had this awareness of Rwanda, and we tried to help, but the fucking evil Americans in the UN, they didn't do fuck all about it. Like that was which is true. But it became like a weird, like left-wing Canadian nationalist idea where it's like, we really wanted to help Rwanda, but then the Americans didn't want to do anything about it, which was true because the troops in Somalia were still there. They could have easily went there, but for various reasons, because of the failures of Somalia, Washington and the UN in New York, they were very hesitant to do anything in Africa ever again because of it. No, and that's why like the safest thing, like the post like Somalia kind of like, and also the post Rwanda kind of intervention in Africa then just became PEPFAR. It said, okay, we're just gonna do drugs.
Yeah,
we're just gonna do AIDS prevention.
There you go.
We're not doing anything else.
Selling AIDS drugs in the black market, we're gonna turn a blind eye. Who gives a shit?
Yeah, like
just send more. Just send more.
This
Yeah.
only exacerbates the ongoing like rape crisis. Like, doesn't matter. Just send more drugs.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
anything, like we potentially made the problem worse. Probably, I think you could argue that we have definitely made the problem worse.
Oh, definitely.
And
Yeah.
so it's like, okay, well now there's no force, and like the quote unquote the law is now just fundamentally enforced by who's ever willing to enforce it. And it's just
Right.
like, well, that raises an ugly question because it's just like, well, we know what that means. And that just means like military force or violence.
But then you did a heck in colonialism, so you can't
That's
do
a heck of
that.
colonialism. So real like, but we're still doing it. The Americans are still there. The French are still there.
They're still
The
bombing
Russians are
places.
still there. The
Oh, yeah,
Chinese
definitely.
are playing this game, and of course they got their own movie, Empire of Dust.
Yeah.
And it's just like, so, we have played this game before, and we're gonna keep playing this game because fundamentally it is an area in which, for better and for worse, you can't really leave to their own devices. And here we are. And so, like, yeah, you can complain all the time. Europe underdeveloped Africa, or like, you guys are the cause of the problem of this. And it's just like, well, and again, it's like, well, that's why we're having like a relatively non-interventionist approach on these issues. And it's like, gee, why is that? And it's like, well, because that would require you to deal with the ugly issue, which is like, well, that would require like a more permanent presence and or involvement.
And every time you get involved, it just turns for the worst.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then like you have to bring your guys home in a body bag, or you get another Black Hawk Down.
So I agree. I agree with the post-colonialists. I think like non-intervention is probably the best, But then like a lot of these like Ilhan Omar types, they don't want that. They of course want a different form of intervention, but like one that requires like an infinite money sink or something like that.
Oh yeah.
They don't want any real solution. God forbid there's any like real solution to like intervening and like sorting out different atrocities happening in Africa as we speak. But like, I don't know, because I think like, I know, like, I remember again, you and Dimes did that. Do you even read on it? But I do think like, not to be like to play devil's advocate, but like there is an argument to be made that colonialism has greatly affected Africa. That's obviously true.
Well, I no one
right?
I think is going to deny that like colonialism
Right.
has an impact on Africa. It's just the question is also going to be, it's like the famous YouTube video where someone asked like, what is the Swahili word for maintenance? And there isn't one.
Right.
And it's just like, well, if like you linguistically are incapable, and again, this is where you get the uncomfortable, like, okay, well, like then we have to like have the ugly HBD conversation. Not to say that it's ugly, it's just it's ugly in like polite liberal company. And it's just like, oh, okay, like we're gonna just have the same, fight that we're always gonna have on
but
this
then
issue.
like letting the Chinese just take over Africa, that's like,
well, right. And then like again,
no
the ugly
pretension to
reality
anything.
about politics kicks in, and it's just like, well, if we're not gonna do it, someone else is gonna do it. And the Russians are gonna fight for it. And then like the French are also still gonna be there, and the French are never gonna give up any of their holdings. Like, let's be honest.
Yeah, that's true. That's all. Well, they have to maintain it. That's
Yeah, they have to.
But the thing is, like, there, in an ideal world, you would want some solution, but at the same time, I think that a process of non-intervention is probably the best bet for everybody involved. Like, I know it's very,
but like you won't
tragic
realistically,
to say because realistically, people are going to die.
Yeah, I was gonna say like that. I mean, idealistically, you are correct, but then like you have the very ugly, like actually, that's probably not going to happen at all.
Well, there's a lot of vested interest in various resources in Africa. There is like the leftist like parapolitics analysis that is correct, and I think like there still is vested economic and imperial interests in Africa. But the thing is, like, the Chinese are going to do it way more brutally than even us. So it's
because they don't.
There's no winning. There's no winning.
There's no Western morality for them.
Right? Yeah. There's no winning ever. So. It's like in an ideal world, I think that if these former colonies were to have been set up for their own success, if they were given enough time to maturate while also keeping within their traditional political practices of rule, if there could be a lot of tailor-made political equations that were to have helped, like I forget who made this point about the South African constitution is exactly the same as the American one.
Liberia,
but it's not going to work because they're not taking into account the facticity of the being of those people and how they've had their traditions for so long, and so on and so forth. So I think that
sorry, I'm not trying to interrupt you, Gio. I just saw entropy, so I'm sorry for reacting. Go on, keep going.
oh, is there a big dono?
I go on, Gio.
Oh, there's something you can't say on air.
No. It's something I have to do.
Okay. But anyways, so look at Sean Weiland in the chat. George W. Weiland. Does Rwanda have oil? No. Then fuck off.
Get your ass back to Venezuela.
China is willing to use draconian management styles, and Africans are willing to impose Chinese as laborers.
Well, this was the conversation I had with a friend of mine, where it's just like, and again, back to the whole "my morality is foreign to you" type deal. You know, like, it's like, well, what does that mean? And it's just like, well, it means the same thing that we saw earlier when it came to the issue of China. It's just like, well, that's neat and that's cool, and isn't that awesome that, like, at the end of the day, we live in a society where, like, if they have a problem, they don't care what the West says.
Right.
It's just like, well, what do you mean by that? And it's just like, wow, we sure have like a real bad Islamic terror problem. And then it's like, well, what do they do? Well, I guess they're just gonna put everyone in a camp, I guess. I don't know. And like that gets kind of awkward and ugly real quick. And it's just like, well, that's bad. And it's just like, well, yeah. And then you get like the weird like cinephile in chat. It's just like, but is the problem fixed?
Well,
and I'm like, well,
yeah, like Tanky supporting African colonialism as long as Chinese are doing it.
Like, good old head scratcher there.
Well, here's the thing. I don't mean to say that like
I'm also being a bit of a chud when I say that.
No, I know, but I'm saying like
there is some ugly truth to it.
I'm on the fence because I don't think that I don't think that there should be like there's obviously problems with the like China Hawk version of neocon thinking where it's like you have to intervene because of China. But I think like I'm not that person, but neither am I.
No, but also like the quote unquote like Chinese question is very different from say like the neoconservative like we must topple every like Muslim / Arab like country in the Middle East.
Because they are going to brutalizing the Africans in a lot of very terrible ways for their own.
But then you have to ask yourself like the really ugly, uncomfortable question of like, well, what is the quote unquote material benefit for the West on this particular issue? Because it's just like there is a case to be made that there is one.
Oh, the rare earths and all that stuff.
The rare earths, the lithium, the diamonds, the cobalt, etc. But then also like this is also like there is uranium there, like there is stuff that like the French get that we also play a role in access to, and it's just like, well, okay, like that's an interesting point, and then like you're left wondering, well, what does that mean for this like whole discussion? And it's like, and again, like this is and to go back to the movie overall, this is a film in which it's very interesting to look back on of 25 plus years of global war on terrorism, because like there is so much fundamental truth to like the world is a fundamentally ugly and foreign and alien one, and there's nothing wrong with acknowledging that, but at the same time like there has to come to the very obvious fact that like society won't allow us to look at the world that way anymore.
Exactly.
And if we did look at the world that way anymore, boy oh boy, that's an awkward position to be in, because that would mean that like if we ever return to that mentality, it's the same thing about that kind of mentality back here at home, is because it's like, okay, well, we are addressing a fundamentally alien, foreign, hostile culture to like our quote unquote our values. And it's like, well, what does that mean? Well, it's like, well, really, at the end of the day, what that's going to probably mean for you is that you're a bigot and you're a racist, and turns out the military has a radicalization problem, and we should probably do something about all these like militias that are coming up after like Gulf War I. And it's just like, that's an interesting thing to look at. We saw this with Bill Clinton in the 1990s, because again, like you're right, like, oh, like you Americans live such boring, safe, dull lives. And it's like, yeah, we do. Because like we don't have to worry about this kind of shit anymore, but now I have to. And to acknowledge what like that war was, or like even the Battle of Mogadishu is, it's like, oh, well, this is like a racial conflict. This is an ethnic conflict. It is a quote unquote race war. And in a lot of ways, the last time that America really fought one of those was in World War II against the Japanese, and it was completely justified. And it's just like, you can't say those things anymore because like that is problematic, racist, bigoted, etc.
Well, I mean, the thing is, it was you are, but at the end of the day, you are intervening in a culture that has its own problems.
Oh
It has its
yeah, no.
own,
Like there's no denial of that.
Right. But no,
no-
but I think like the point being is that another thing I would want to avoid, even though I think there is a truth to that, is that there is sort of like the post-colonial studies thing about, well, there's a romantic ideal to these like socialist revolutionaries in Africa, like Julius Nyerere, and like they're fighting in life and death and they're passionate about their ideals. But the reality of it is that there's a romantic picture that you're putting out there. But the reality is it's very brutal and bloody, and it's, child soldiers and minefields and G-word eyed and war grape and destruction and evil. And it's like, I think there's a problem with romanticizing our way of life, obviously, to where we're like, let's just impose all of our ideals on them by force. And there's also a problem with this sort of romanticism of the, global South revolutionary ideal. That is, if you actually study a lot of these post-colonial revolutions, were ghastly and bloody and terrible. Not to say that, like, I think post-colonialism is a very sticky but yet interesting topic, because in some ways it kind of was inevitable, just as these empires were overstretching themselves. But at the same time, it's like it's a very hard thing to qualify, because there is obviously a lot of people in the post-colonialist camp that do romanticize it to a very large extent, even though the reality on the ground is very brutal. But that's not to say that I would support any like overt interventionism of solving the world's problems, because as we see nowadays, unlike in maybe 2001 or even 1993, a lot of this is logistically impossible. I mean, there's a lot of things like what happens with China, what happens if they bomb Iran, the Western world, they're having difficulties even supplying the Ukrainians. So
yeah,
we live in different geopolitical realities now. And I think the picture of the Western world being still, the greatest military power
speaking
in the world.
of going back to the 90s, like,
yeah.
It's it is like one of those things where it's just like, oh, like these were the things we were dealing with back then.
Well, even 20 years in Iraq and Afghanistan.
Oh yeah, I mean all that came.
That depleted a lot of military power, and so I think a lot of these problems, there is no really good solution. Obviously, there's no. I mean, you don't want a black pill, but
no, and it's also the whole like question of like, well, who are you? What's the word I'm looking for? It's also like the question of like, I'm trying to think what.
Well, your way of life gets worse and worse, but you have to care about like people.
Well, yeah, but it's also, it's also the question about like the basic kind of like 101 things that you'll see in a lot of poli-sci classes about like international law, right? Where it's just like the question then becomes international law is the question of who wants to enforce it.
Exactly. Yeah. But you know what I mean? Like, well, there was a whole rhetoric last week, if you recall, about international law being a fiction. And I said that it's not a fiction per se. It's that it applies to certain powers and doesn't apply to others. But also,
no, yeah. And I mean, it's what you said with Gore, and it's what I said with Oren. It's just like there is a very ugly question of like this is almost like a borderline polite fiction.
But you were saying, Prue, that's a great point, though, is the willingness to enforce it as well.
Yeah.
Like there may be more of an investment.
The law, the rule of law starts with enforcement. And it's just like,
what happens if there is like a pivot to Africa? And then what if the Chinese want to import troops there to fight for their assets?
You're going to get some real interesting back and forths about.
Well, like Wagner and like American troops and Wagner shooting at each other in Mali or wherever. It's like, I mean, there were cases in Syria, for example, where American troops cooperated with Wagner and with the Russian forces. But there was cases like where they were shooting at each other. And that was a very like, Russia's one thing, but like imagine the Chinese And if they
Which we have not technically fought since Korea.
Really, yeah.
And they haven't really fought anybody since they fought Vietnam for a little bit
right.
in 1979. And that didn't end well for them either. And so
Right.
it's just like, man, we're in a really ugly spot. And
not to say the Chinese are like materially, a military superpower. I'm not like this like weird cinephile, but at the same time, I think it poses a lot of very complicated economic.
well, we
and
also live in
geopolitical-
a different world politically because
Exactly.
it's just like,
Yeah.
well, it wouldn't be like a military power or a peer-to-peer conflict because like it's going to be information, it's going to be trade war, it's also going to
Mhm.
be Chinese students importing, blight.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, Sean Weiland brings up a good point. Here's the thing. I am a non-interventionist when it comes to China, but at the same time, I mean, the West has done a lot of, let's face it, the West has done a lot of very evil things in Africa as well. But the Chinese, Sean Weiland says China's already importing Chinese men into Africa.
Oh yeah.
Work as administrators, especially since Chinese have surplus of men thanks to the one-child policy. Well, there is a lot of horror stories as it pertains to African women and Chinese officials, and that's the sex trade, and yes, the West has also run a lot of very the beginning of the show we were talking about the satanic panic and the UN being involved in various trafficking scandals. I don't know if I could say that on YouTube, but at the same time, like there's a very brutal reality to a lot of Chinese rule in Africa. But the thing is there a willingness to fight the Chinese on that issue? I don't see that willingness. I see that willingness when it comes to an economic war with China in terms of the Chinese mainland. But when it comes to Chinese involvement in Africa, that's a very complicated situation. And I think that I question whether a lot of the Western powers even have the resources to extend ourselves into Africa anymore. So, I mean, obviously, don't take my opinion. I'm not an expert on geopolitics. I would have to read more about the issue. There's people that have conflicting narratives. A lot of people in geopolitics, they think that maybe it would be a good idea to reinvest in Africa to hedge against Chinese influence economically. Yeah, Sean, that's another great point. They are hunting animals to extinction as well. But I'm saying this not as a China hawk. I want to make that message very clear. But I think that, you have to be realistic about these things. And also you have to be realistic about even the Africans themselves and their capacities of self-rule and so on and so forth. So, I think I would like to think I'm a bit more of a realist. I know a lot of people, they do come up with these polemics against China and they focus on the China thing and the China, and we got to intervene in China. It's like, I'm not saying that, nor am I a cinephile. If that makes sense, Prude.
It's a hard balance to walk.
Yeah.
And I think anyone would be remiss if we didn't, consider the fact that like these things are a lot uglier than what they look like up front. And it's like, yeah, I mean, like you just have to, that's just how it is.
You have to be realistic. You have to realize that the Chinese have a different civilization and they have a different way of viewing things. And to say that like the Chinese can offer you some kind of like, a better ideal than your ideals is nonsensical. And but at the same time, blaming China for all of your problems is also equally stupid. So I don't know. Well, yeah, Capitalisimo is a good point. China's obviously intelligent enough to understand the economic logic of conservation, which makes me think stewardship of the world is just a Western thing. No, I mean that. Let's be real here. That is true.
Oh yeah, like anyone who says otherwise, I have a bridge to sell you in Alaska.
Yeah.
Like it's let's just be real honest with that real quick about where the concept of conservation, like that is a very uniquely Western ideal, at least when we see it when it comes to like Chinese fishing boats, their ability to say that they're pro-environment, but then also go with
God, the fishing boats. Yeah.
Not just the fishing boat thing, but also like you have the like, we were part of the Paris Climate Accords, but it's like, oh, by the way, here's like 50 billion like new coal-powered fire plants. It's just
they're hunting donkeys into extinction in Africa.
Wow.
The donkey meat. No, I'm not joking. This is real. The donkey trade in Africa, like it's ghastly. Yeah, They're hunting. It's like total extinction level event going on. Well, I've been jib jabbing trying to in before myself with realistic takes, but what do you think about the Chinese in Africa, Prude? What's your prediction?
Well, I think that if we're not going to be there, someone else is going to be. I think it's sort of just basic, just basic reality, and I don't have much to really add to it on that ground, just because it's like, well, these things aren't going anywhere. It's just the truth, and so if we're not there, someone else is going to do it. And that's it. There's really not much to add to it on that front. But we are at 9:34 my time, so I'm going to say that we're going to head to the super chats. Gio, you just recently put out another painting video, didn't you?
Yeah, today. Yeah, I talk about abstract expressionism while I do another plein air work. So yeah, go check that out on my channel. And that's really great. Yeah.
Well, good. I will be live on Oren McIntyre's channel tomorrow. We were going to talk about the recent announcement from the Trump administration about trying to cap credit card debt. And also, I guess he put in an executive order attempting to ban the large these large corporate conglomerates from owning single family home. So it's more of a bread and butter economic episode nonetheless, but I think that you all will enjoy it. I think it'll be good. That'll be live tomorrow on Oren's channel, and then from there I have a few videos I need to finish editing and to put out, and I also need to do some recording. I have some essays that I plan to put out this month and next month. I really don't plan to do any live streaming at all next month in February for obvious reasons. And then there will be video essays, and there will be things that I've promised people who've paid me to review to do that. So there's a lot going on in the immediate future. So nevertheless, I am always appreciative of everyone's financial support. Gio's links for his Patreon are down below. So are my Subscribe Star. It's also the lovely QR code that you see on screen here. So I will be taking the live streaming break off, but also next week, it's the last Monday in January. So it's going to be the 26th of January. Dimes and I are doing Georgia Sorrell's on Reflections on Violence. So that will be, I think, a really good episode. There's a lot of fundamental work really need to appreciate to take a look at here. Like I said, Dyer or Do You Even Read is one of those books that we always try to cover text that people say like you should read theory or whatever. We actually try to do that for you. So I certainly hope that you guys will enjoy that, to say the least, in terms of what kind of stuff we're going to be covering. On top of that, I think I'll be on Pony Express Radio this Thursday and next Thursday as well, just to help cover the news and help the OGC guys out. And then also, I think Mr. D and I are doing a Twin Peaks episode at some time this week or next. So lots of things still in the barrel for me, and then a lot of handwritten essays I need to go transcribe. So, I mean, it's going to be a busy couple of months for me. I really can't wait for all this wedding shit to be over with, because I'm tired of pulling my hair out about alterations and food and who's doing what and blah, 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 blah. It's, but it's all worth it in the end. Let's not kid ourselves.
You can't put Aunt Gladys next to the Haitian boyfriend. That was from Sopranos, where Johnny Sack was planning his daughter's wedding. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Lorraine. So it was Aunt Lorraine. Aunt Lorraine. What happens when they see her with a Haitian boyfriend?
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Oh, two things I forgot to mention. Two things.
Yeah, go for it.
Number one, I forgot to mention one of the greatest pieces of fan art in human existence is Dilbert 2 and Dilbert 3 by Chef Boyardee, by C. Boyardee. Go to YouTube. Go look up Dilbert 2 and Dilbert 3. Greatest MS Paint artwork, video art in existence. And also, I mentioned the Rwanda thing. There was a candidate here in Canada. I probably should mention this. It's too, it's too like leftoid.
Spicy.
There's this guy. He was running for the New Democrat Party. It was sort of like this, like he's one of these like Chapo Trap House types or whatever. But I guess like he's a tanky or something like that. His name is Eve something, and they canceled him because they uncovered something about how he like denied the Rwandan genocide for some reason. And it's like, what the fuck? Like, just it's like you're so invested in like second, third, fourth world politics that you have like a spicy take.
You have a spicy
For
take on
Rwandan
a genocide.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like
Nothing
it was very
spicy like,
strange.
what other people would say is controversial, but no, it's the Rwandan
It's like I specifically
genocide.
deny the Rwandan genocide. It's like, why? What? Like it was. I
There's
don't know.
something very chud-coded about that. I don't know why.
I would have to look into it, but like he got canceled by a lot of these other like Canadian Antifa types. Like it's very strange. It's these people live very strange lives. I don't know. It's one of those
What's
things.
that? Left-wingers live strange lives? Say it ain't so.
The reason I criticized Romeo Dallaire is not because I don't deny what happened in Rwanda. I mean, I criticized Romeo Dallaire for trying to make a political career out of it, like if you recall my rant against Romeo Dallaire, and also like being a thing about like, well, that's why I supported Justin Trudeau because of Rwanda, like that's why I criticized him. It's not because of his. Obviously, I think like what he did was noble, and obviously, and I think like Rwanda was a huge failure, on the part of the international quote unquote rules based order, which we know is bullshit. But no, I just think him like being like this Liberal Party guy and like using his service to support the Liberal Party, I think was shameless. But I don't criticize what he did. I mean, obviously, Romeo Dallaire is, I have to give him respect, obviously. But
well, I think that gives us.
I do not deny the Rwandan genocide. Put it that way.
We're gonna get a lovely Wikipedia little entry down below the video, so it'll be fine. And I already got a DM letting me know that they're going to be able to help me out on this lovely week's the thing that I was just given some money to review. So it will be fine. That'll be fun. Looking forward to that. So we're going to start with the Entropy Super Chats, and then we will go on over to the... actually, we'll start with YouTube, and then we'll go to Entropy. So the pinned comment in the live chat, as well as in the description of the YouTube video, you can send Super Chats that way, but we will start with the ones over here on... up here. There we go. So Wingman 4564, he just says, "Hurry up, I haven't got all day." John Wayne Gacy. Oh yeah, his last words. The Texas Department of Corrections also keeps the last words and statements of all death row inmates. If you ever want to have an interesting conversation with your own sense of morality, go read them. They're particularly interesting, to say the least. So, no, I'm not Grim from Red Hood from 499. He says, "I was watching the New York State of the State 2026 this morning, and Governor Hochul had a segment on AI and showed a J.D. Vance in a propeller hat. What a world. Incredible.
Who is he governor of?
I want you to read the super chat that is on screen real slow.
Oh, he's the New York governor?
Governor Katie Hochul is the governor of New York.
Oh, okay.
It's right there in the chat. New York State of the State.
Sorry, who is the other guy? Who is the other guy that was governor of New York?
Let's go read that real slow.
Oh my god.
Gondola 1050 for 50 kron. We went over this Norwegian krone, right? Kroner. Listen, chat, we're gonna need more likes on this stream. Well, I greatly appreciate it. I'm not a big algo guy. I will not ask you to like, subscribe, and share, but because Gondola paid me to do so, you will hit the like button, you will ring the bell, you will subscribe, you will share this, and you will do exactly what my one of my very good friends does. He puts on the Digital Archipelago and his other favorite podcasters and streamers up on his office at work that all of his guys listen to. So I guess we're radicalizing somebody's lunch break room. So I hope everyone has fun over there, guys. Have fun.
For Blood 50 kroner.
That's very kind of him. Blood Base is an incredibly generous $49.99.
Well, basically 50.
It's $50. Thank you, sir. Yeah. I greatly appreciate it. I have no idea what the super sticker is because I can't see it on my back end here from YouTube. Oh, I mean, I can't through the YouTube studio, but nevertheless, it's up on screen for everyone else to appreciate. Your ongoing and generous donations from viewers like you are the reason why this show continues, and I'm really not going to complain. You guys make it all worthwhile. Wingman 4564 says, "No book review. Cat will get the bubble bath soon." I have no idea what that's referencing.
Well, he was going to wash his cat if you don't review a certain, I don't know, what did you have to review?
No book. Oh, the book review for Dyer. I'm honestly, I don't want that to be a Dyer review, Wingman. I have the PDF. I will probably review it for myself and make it a video.
What is
Because
this?
I don't want to set a precedent where people pay dimes and I to review things. I will review the book. I will happily do a stream on it if you want me to. But I would like Dyer to be free of like people giving us money to review books. I'm happy to take suggestions, but I want Dyer and I to be Dimes and I's own thing. Speaking of which, Dimes and I are currently working on setting up arrangements to do a Do You Even Read live show and also just to hang out and to do some sort of live event, probably in the fall of 2026, most likely in Chicago. So was more details get hammered out from Dimes and I will let you guys know. So now we're gonna go.
You're so in love with Dyer now. It's just
I
kidding,
have a
I'm
love-hate relationship with all I do, Gio. I think this is well known.
Uh,
I have a love-hate relationship with all I do.
what's he want you to review?
Sense on
What's
the
that?
Antebellum South.
Okay, yeah.
I only donated because Sean Weiland told me to. You literally told us the price for a book review. And I did give you the price for a book review. I don't know if I want to do it for Dyer, though. I am going to review the book. I'm a man of my word, and I took your money. Gio, you could do a live show. You should go to Chicago. You should go to Chicago with us.
Yeah, but I
Gio.
got to drive 9 hours. Come on.
You can't fly?
I could. I'd rather drive, though.
Well, I mean, I'm not driving to Chicago from where I live. Sorry.
Oh, of course. Yeah, Texas to
I don't even want to.
Chicago.
I don't even want to know. We're like, hold on. I'm literally gonna just. What is that to drive? Now I'm just curious.
Like 20 hours, I think.
That is like a 14-hour drive.
Oh
my god.
Okay, there you go.
Dyer, Dyer, which is do you
even lift?
Even read? Which is just
Oh, sorry,
Dyer.
dial. Yeah, do you even lift?
Yeah. Yeah, Gio should put money out from Super Chats to fly out to Chicago. Yeah, it would be true. We
there
could
you
make
go.
something happen. It would be fun to do DA live. We talked about doing that at one point for like episode 100.
Yeah,
at this point, we
that's
could make episode like 300 or 200
yeah, something like that. Yeah, make it
a live show. That would be fun. That would be like a good that would be a really fun one. That would be a really good time. Do the Hyphenated Heresy by Joel Webben.
What's that about?
I imagine it has a lot to do with identity. But I guess I could read it. I mean, I want to do something equivalent to like Real Secret Coffee Hours for sure. Not to trip off Dimes' thing, but I used to do that with like Foreign Affairs magazine like 3 or 4 years ago. Yeah, I did. Oh, you all said the wrong book. It's Whitewashing America. Who the fuck sent me the Scent book? Oh my god.
Someone sent you the Scent book?
Yeah.
Impression?
Material Culture. Someone sent me a Scent one. Sorry, not you. I have that book. I have that PDF also on my files here. Do not worry. It will be reviewed by Bridget T. Hennigan. I've got it. Don't you worry. But the whiteness of dishes, gravestone art, architecture, women's clothing, and more.
I'd read that.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. A book I would love to cover on Dyer one of these days is a book that came at suggestion to me from Semiagog, and it was Buildings and Power. That's a good architecture book. Yeah. Do I even Mambo? A DA Whitewater. Yeah, Scratch and Sniff sticker book. I do have a Scratch and Sniff sticker book. It's called My Lotto Collection. So we'll keep we'll carry on here. It's going to be a good time. All right. So over on. All right, so on to the cheese. All right, Entropy. Here we go. Constant Manifold sends a very generous $5. He says, I tried explaining microplastics to my 5-year-old. She replied, I heard a legend about this. Instant favorite response. Your daughter is, that's a wonderful saying. I hope you hold on to that for the rest of your life with her. And I hope that when she's older, you reply to her with that. And I hope that you let her know all the cute things that she used to do as a kid, because it makes her know, and it will help her know that you remember these things, that you love her very much, that you cared and you took note. That's a great one. I heard a legend about this. That's really good. That's super cute. I love that. Thank you for sharing that.
And hopefully by the time your daughter's older, the microplastics issue would have been solved somewhat.
And if not, hopefully by the time that your daughter is older, that you have a sauna and that you're detoxing from microplastics, a la Brian Johnson. It'll be great. Carrying on here, Charlie Mackey says, good evening, I hope you're well. He says this for $25. Incredibly generous. Thank you very much, sir.
$5.
I asked about the new Sun trilogy last week, but how much for just a review of the first book of The Shadow of the Torturer on DA? 300-ish pages, very bizarre science fantasy. The Shadow of the Torturer. That's the first one of the Book of the New Sun from Gene Wolfe. I'm not opposed. I would do that for the usual $100 fee. That's fine with me. I don't have a problem with that. I can review the first book with Gio.
Pretty good title.
It's the Shadow of the Torturer. It's already got my has my attention, good sir. 1980, 303 pages, science fiction, fantasy. I'm fine with that. I like Gene Wolfe. We could also get Capitalissimo on because he's done a boatload of he's done a lot of Gene Wolfe, or he's read a lot of Gene Wolfe. So no, I'm not opposed to that at all. We can make that happen. So yeah, Jay Burton has also done a stream a few years ago on the New Sun that I recommend. Well, there you go. That's fine. Yeah, I literally just mentioned you, Cap. Do not worry. So we can make that happen. Saying I heard a legend about this is a very NPC coded, but in a good way. That's very true. Remember to detox your daughters regularly. Does Gio even have a Labubu? I hope not.
No,
although we've discussed this. Our friend Oswald Art has made one on for fan art of the show before. So yeah. Oh, I know we're on a delay. I'm just giving you a tough time. So this is the last super chat of the evening. And it's one that I was dreading because I think someone had. Never mind. Charlie Mackey sends $100. He says for book one of the New Sun trilogy, Shadow of the Torturer. All right, it's done. It's done. I will go buy a physical copy and I will go review it. Gio and I will both review it and we will make it happen. So done. Problem solved. We can review that book on DA. It'll be a great time. We'll even bring Capitalissimo on to join us in reviewing. It'll be a great time. It's books. Gio, we're reviewing books.
Whoa.
We're saved.
Holy crap.
We're saved. And so the last super chat of the evening and the most expensive one. Good God. I'm reading chat now.
You don't have to say the amount.
I won't say the amount. Burks. It is an anime for now. Oh, Charlie Mackey. The next thing is for an anime review. Don't you worry. Oh yeah, Gio did. You do have the.
I got Gio.
Yeah, you do have the Gio Fumo. I went to a local festival in my area. You know how I got like sort of like a mix of food and arts and people selling things in booths and stuff. There was one booth that literally just had Labubus for sale.
Yeah, you were telling us.
And
about
for like,
that, yeah.
and like for the 6 hours I was there, he sold out. This is like a middle of nowhere town of like 5,000 people. He sold out. I was blown away. Like he was packing up at noon.
There was a
and
guy
I was like, "What are you doing?"
Merch,
I sold all my Labubus. I'm done for the day. And I'm like, "Oh my God."
There was a guy at Mare Fair that had a booth with nothing but DA merchandise, and he sold out.
You know, I have been told that Mare Fair is like one of the hot spots for right-wing extremism, and so we have been asked to go. I don't know if I'll ever do it though.
As long as we get a cut of the merchandise.
Yeah, that's fine. Like if someone's gonna sell weird Mare Fair DA
Can you
merch,
imagine that? Like,
I'll take 10%.
People would sell DA merch at Mare Fair. Like,
isn't Mr. Polemical the guy that always goes with the like Patrick Casey Mare Fair t-shirt? I mean, hey, it's not so bad. Wait. How do you make these things? That's a really good question.
Sure, we could drop ship.
Fugglers are the new meta. Sir. Fugglers.
Fugglers.
Well, that just sounds like we're talking about fugly people. Fugglers are always the new meta because we're a bunch of fugglers with a podcast. So, all right.
I gotta look at this. What is it?
Yeah, go look that up and torture yourself. This is the last super chat of the evening. It's for a large, substantial amount. I'll probably send you some of this money, Gio.
No.
Unless did he pay you? I don't know.
No, he did not.
Did Gondola pay you big last time?
Oh,
I don't know. Anyways.
I don't know. Anyways.
He says, for an undisclosed amount, because I would feel very bad if I announced the price. He says, sorry for nagging, but I have to insist on a Code Chaos episode review once the anime review cooldown ticks out. I had been warned by a friend of mine that someone was going to do this. A correction. I had been warned by two friends of mine, a mutual of mine, I think it was Capitalissimo, and then my IRL friend, who is also a huge weeb and a huge Code Chaos fan. He messaged me saying like, oh, someone's going to do this. And he told me that when I was at church, and I was like, dude, I don't want to talk about work while I'm praising the Lord here. Let's not do that. So
Code
okay.
Chaos, yeah.
Book of the New
Oh,
Sun. All right, Gondola. So this is how I'm gonna cut you a deal here, Gondola. I'm gonna do Book of the New Sun. We're gonna do Shadow of the Torturer first, and then we'll do Code Geass. But Code Geass will probably be like 2 episodes, like we did the last time,
yeah.
and it will be. I will also have my weeb friends on again. So we'll have Onizuka Groiper, my friend Andre, and then we'll probably have Capitalissimo on for that one because I think he's also seen Code Geass. So that's what we're gonna do. But it will
Wait,
happen.
am I gonna do Shadow of the Torture as well?
Yeah, he sent me $100 to review it. I mean, I
All right,
might
we'll
make it
do it together.
I might make it a D. Oh, I'll send you the PDF.
I'm gonna read all of it, but yeah, I'll probably read a substantial portion of it.
I'll read the whole thing because Charlie paid me to. So okay, the Code Geass, it will probably happen after February, Gondola. I have Crunchyroll, thanks to you fuckers. I will go watch all of Code Geass, and make it happen. So no big deal. So while I'm off the air in February, I will go watch it and I will go tweet about it. So I hope you're happy, guys. Fugglers are with real human teeth. Okay, yikes. Once I get my new job, I'm going to start sewing and making Gio Fumo real and make a prude frog plush
to sell at Mayfair.
Code Geass is 50 episodes. How many episodes is Code Geass?
Oh God.
Hold on, we're already here. How many? It's 2006, 2 seasons. How many episodes?
2 seasons.
How many episodes? I got questions. How many? What's the original run? Just give me the original run. Anime, please do that. How many? 25 episodes. I guess 25 in the second season. Okay,
that's pretty
fine.
good.
That's about 50 episodes. Okay, I'll work with that. That's definitely worth the money that he sent in. I'm not really going to complain. So that's fine. Okay, so there we go. There's your answer. Everyone's a winner. Everyone got what they wanted. Is everyone happy?
Oh,
and no, I'm not Grim from Red Hood says, well, Code Goonass it is. Goonass. I like that. That's what we're going to do. It's Code Goonass here now, ladies and gentlemen. It was really funny. I was telling the you guys have all gone quackers. I'm ready. How about you? I'm ready.
I just noticed we had a whole stream about Africa, and I didn't bring myself to do the African Gio Groiper.
Oh, you didn't? No.
No, I should have. I shouldn't have. No, that'd be too. I don't know. I want to have some deference towards the Africans. Like I think, yeah, they've
kind of got it rough as it is. That's
they're currently getting fucked over by the Chinese. So it's funny. When I was in grad school, I actually there were 2 Nigerians in my class doing geopolitics. And they had this intense hatred of the Chinese. I remember it was very funny talking to them about the Chinese. Yeah. So, anyways,
it will be fun. But yeah, so I will definitely be doing that.
don't even mention that, Wingman. I'm a hair away from deleting that. Don't even, man. Come on.
That's funny. That's funny. That's so good. God. That's so good. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we will be live next week on Gio's channel. I have no idea what we're covering because that's how this game works around here. Yeah. And then after that, we'll be back on mine. And then I'm going to take a short break in February for obvious reasons. I hope you will all understand. There will be videos and video essays and all the paid reviews. So there's going to be at least 3 video game reviews that come out in February, I think. So I hope you all enjoy those. I think those will be fun as content. I'm also inviting, I'm going to put a community post out in a little short announcement video. I do want to do this little break thing on and off. I want to do what Dave Green did when he took a short break. I want to have people come on and make video essays and present them. And if I think they're good, I'll put them on the channel. And Prude's just living in sin for February. No, Randall, I get married in February. I don't get to live in sin anymore. I get to just, you know what? I'll play the. I get to fuck without any real problem or concern. It'll be great. So, anyways, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I hope that you all have a great rest of your week. Go check out Gio's new painting videos. I really enjoy
a video out as well.
Go watch the videos though. I really enjoy seeing Gio work. It's a lot of fun. I greatly appreciate it. Is there a criteria for essays? You can email me and DM me about them. I don't really have any criteria. So we'll figure it out, but I'm going to have fun with that. Outside of that, I'll be live on Oren McIntyre's channel tomorrow. We've got Dyer later this month. We've got Pony Express Radio coming up later on. So I hope that you all have a great rest of your day, no matter where you are. I hope that you have a great morning, a good afternoon, and a good night.
Yeah, I got Content Minded this Thursday. I'm going to be talking about AI, believe it or not.
Ooh, that'll be fun.
Yeah, it's going to be good. It's actually about the Goon Pod world that the AI will create. So, speaking of, goon,
that'll be good. That'll be good.
Yeah.
You will goon in the pod. It's the
well, Nick Land's been making the rounds lately. I don't know if I should just go and DM him.
You should. I really think you should.
Yeah.
You need to just DM him. Just make it
But
happen.
I'd have to commit, though. You'd have to, you know what I mean? It's intimidating.
Just do it.
All right.
If Oren can do it, and if like the Theory Cell guys can do it on their podcast, you can do it.
There you go.
It'll be great. So let's make it happen. All right. Well, that being said, I think we'll see you all next week.
All right. God bless. Goodbye. Too sweet.
See you, gents.